proceed with this morning's hearing.
Hey, Peter, everyone can hear me?
Yes, we can.
And everyone can see my video as well? I know my head is not shining like Mr. Cope, but I'm still trying my best.
Easy on the ball jokes first thing in the morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, Mr. Chair, you can proceed at whenever you wish.
So are we live and this is streaming? Everyone is available, the staff and all the committee members I can see?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So we are going to start. It's 9:02. Good morning and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Brampton's Committee of Adjustment meeting. My name is Ron Chatta, Committee Chair for today's meeting. The Committee of Adjustment is composed of 5 citizen members who are appointed by Brampton City Council. The committee is authorized by the Ontario Planning Act to consider applications for the minor variances for the provision of the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The committee also considered applications for consent, sometimes referred to as land division applications, which include severing a new lot from an existing lot, a lot addition, easement, mortgages, or leases in excess of 21 years. This meeting will be held through remote electronic participation in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 as amended by Bill 87. The Municipal Emergency Act 2020 and an order in the Council from March 2020, which amend the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act and prohibits organized public events of more than 10 people. City Council has authorized virtual meeting of its committees with all the members participating remotely to facilitate the continuation of the city business during the current pandemic. We will begin the meeting with city clerks calling the roll call for the attendance at today's meeting. Mr. Clerk, if you can just formally ask each and every member if they're present today, even though I can see them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've heard from you, so you are present. Vice Chair Dorfler?
I am here, thank you.
Thank you. Member Marquez?
I am here, thank you.
Member Culp?
I'm here, thank you.
And Member Power? Member Power, if you can just unmute your microphone. Member Power, can I just, your microphone, there you go. Can you just acknowledge that you're present?
Yeah, I'm here present, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, all members are present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As we all continue to cope with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the Committee of Adjustment will proceed by conducting virtual meetings to support physical distancing and comply with the public gatherings restrictions while ensuring the business of the municipality can continue. In-person attendance at this meeting is severely restricted. Members and most staff are participating electronically in this meeting. The public can still access and participate in the meeting by a few measures. Number one is the watching this meeting remotely through the city's live stream and playback of the archived video streams after today's meeting has concluded. Second, prior to start of the meeting, pre-registering with the city clerk's office to speak as a delegation before the committee during the virtual meeting to share your comments and provide your input on a specific agenda item on today's meeting agenda. Third, prior to start of today's meeting, sending written audio or video submissions to the city clerk's office to be provided to the committee for consideration during the virtual meeting as your input on a specific agenda item. A final reminder for members of committee, before we start consider today's agenda business, please ensure your video is off and microphone is muted until you are assigned to the floor. Then you can turn both on when you speak. This will help ensure only one person is speaking at one time and minimize other background disruption during the meeting. before we consider today's applications, the committee has some procedural matter to take care of. The first is the minutes of the previous meeting are presented in today's agenda. The meeting was held on August 18, 2020. Committee members, is there any question, comment, or concern about these minutes? Seeing, hearing none. If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting August 18, 2020, as presented? Looking for a motion to proceed. Motion by Mr. Cope, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? This is carried. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. The next item we have is declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any member have any declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be discussed on today's agenda? Any members? Mr. Cope?
Yes. It will be, Mr. Chat, through you, it's going to be application number 500 Ace Drive.
Okay, of the nature, please.
It's just in relation to the Policaro Auto Group. I've got a history with them dating back as early as January of this year. So I don't feel as though it's in my best interest to partake in that application.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing, hearing none. And so the Secretary Treasurer will also note for the meeting minutes about the conflict of interest by Mr. Cope. Next, we move on
Through the chair, if I may, I just want some clarification on the declaration by Mr. Cope. Is it specific to application? He said item number 5, which is an application that...
Actually, let me just help out a bit because that was the last time as well.
We have 3 applications for Ace Drive, so I want to be clear in terms of, is he declaring a conflict on all 3, or one that he had previously declared a conflict on, being A19-200? And I just want clarification.
So,
I believe it is the A19-200, which is the application in relation to the Policaro Auto Group.
So just to confirm, Member Cope, you're declaring your conflict of interest on application A19-200.
Yes, and in, oops, sorry, you're correct. Sorry, my mistake. Application 5 is different. For some reason, I can't pull up the agenda. I'm having an issue with that, which is why I can't see. I had just written it down briefly here, and I can't pull up the numbers. But it is, I forgot the actual conflict number there, ma'am, and I apologize. But it is in relation to the Policaro Auto Group on Ace Drive, and I believe it is 0 Ace Drive.
yes, A19-200,
Yes.
2713442 Ontario Inc. Okay, so all clear. We now move.
And
Sorry, Ms. Myers?
through the chair,
You have anything to add?
through the chair, through the discussion, if I could have the reason for the declaration for the conflict of interest from Member Cole?
Sorry, just I've got previous dealings with the Policaro Auto Group as early as January of this year. So there is a bit of history with us in terms of people that we know through the auto group. So I just feel as it's not in my interest to partake in any of the applications that they bring forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that good enough, Ms. Myers?
Through the chair, the question?
I said, is that good enough for you, Ms. Myers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to be 100% clear, given that we have 3 items specific to
Yeah, I know.
Ace Drive. I wanted
that's
to
good.
make sure that we
That's good.
captured the correct application.
Thank you for clearing that. And now we move on to withdrawals and deferrals. The first item we have received a written request dated September 3rd, 2020 from Michael Vanny of Western Consulting, authorized agent for the applicant for a deferral of a consent application B2020-0011. So do we have any registered delegation or correspondence? If there is anyone who wishes to speak on this application, whether Mr. Vani or anybody, you're more than welcome. This is your time now.
Mr. Chair, Michael Vanny is in attendance virtually, and Michael, you are in the session now, so you can unmute your mic if you wish to address committee on this matter.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. As indicated in my letter dated September 3rd, we have been in discussions with planning and development staff regarding this application and agree with their position that a deferral would be best to no later than the latest meeting of this year so that we could resolve some technical issues and bring forward a more fulsome report to you for consideration.
Okay. So this is at the Rose Garden Residence Inc., right?
Correct.
So this is the only one application, or there is a related minor variance application as well?
No, it's just the one consent application.
Okay. So committee members, any question, comment, concern? Seeing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments regarding the deferral request, even though it's through the consultation with the staff? That's what my understanding is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. We do support the request for deferral, requesting that it be no later than the last hearing of this year.
Sorry, Ms. Swinfield, can you please speak a little bit loud?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, is that a little bit better?
Yep.
Okay. So staff are in agreement with this deferral. We are just requesting that it not be any later than the last hearing of 2020.
Okay. If no other question, comments by anyone else looking for a motion to proceed for a deferral request, no later than last hearing of 2020. Motion put forward by Ms. Marcus, seconded by Mr. Cope. All in favor? Okay, this application is deferred as no one is opposing. All in favor. So now, thank you, Mr. Vani.
Thank you.
The next item we have a letter dated August 30, 2020 from Vladimir Rudenko. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly. Of Strogan Inc., authorized agent for applicant requesting a deferral of minor variance application A-2020-0051. Mr. Clerk, if there's anyone who would like to speak on this application, whether that's the authorized agent or anybody else, any concerned neighbor or anyone from the public.
Mr. Chair, Vladimir is in the session. Vladimir, please go ahead if you wish to address the committee on this matter.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and staff. As indicated in my letter of August 30th, 2020, we have communicated with planning staff with respect to this minor variance application, and staff was recommending that we defer the application for submitting more information on the proposed minor variance. And then this, staff have also recommended that we do it through a formal pre-consultation meeting. Accordingly, we submitted this formal request for deferral.
So just to double check with Ms. Myers, the application number one, the consent application. So are we going to look into, I believe, the both application at the same time? Application A 2020-0051 and application B 2020-0010, or we are just looking at this application for the minor variance, not the consent one?
Through the chair, the applicant is requesting deferral of the minor variance application only. The consent application can proceed as a separate application. It does not necessarily have to be heard in conjunction with the minor variance application at this time.
Sorry, Ms. Myers, I had a little bit hard time in understanding and listening. So are we considering both the application to defer or only the minor variance, and we are going ahead with the consent application today?
Through the chair, for your consideration, we are only looking at a deferral at this particular time for the minor variance application. The consent application can proceed.
Okay, that's, thank you for clearing that out. Many members, any question, comment, concern regarding this request by the authorized agent? Seeing, hearing none. Anyone in the audience or public wishes to participate or weigh in their comments? Seeing, hearing none. And staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff are supportive of the deferral. We're requesting that the application be deferred no later than the last hearing of March 2021, just to give the applicant some time to initiate that pre-con process, kind of get their site plan moving to a point where it would be better for them to actually move the variance forward.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Meyer, just to just to make sure, the request is for the March 2021. Is there any date specific, or just there's only one meeting in March?
Through the chair, we anticipate 2 meetings for March of 2021, likely March the 4th and March 25th.
So I would suggest March the 20th, if that's correct. March 20th, like to hear, because it's better to give the end of the March date. Committee members, if no further discussion, comment, or question, we're looking for a motion to defer this application for the March 20th by Mr. Power, seconded by Ms. Marcus. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none. So this application, the minor variance application, has been deferred to March 20th, 2021. Thank you. Thank you to the authorized agent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The third written request we have, committee has received a letter dated September 3rd, 2020 from Sarah Clark of Glenn Shunar and Associates, requesting a deferral of minor variance application A-2020-0052 for the property of 263 Queen Street East. Mr. Clerk, if there's anybody wishes to speak, whether that's the authorized agent or anybody else.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Sarah Clark and Colin Chung have been brought into the meeting. Both your mics are active. You wish to address the committee, please go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Mr. Chair, staff, and members of the committee. As said, my name is Sarah Clark, and I'm here today on behalf of our client, Soneal Kipling, Inc., the registered owner of 263 Queen Street East. We are seeking deferral of this minor variance application, A-2020-0055, in order to further discuss with staff the nature of the concerns associated with the application. We note that the variance request was related to the temporary permissions to permit the outdoor storage or parking of oversized vehicle on only a limited portion of the subject property. This request was made in response to an order to comply with the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. As such, we would respectfully request to be included as an item in the November 10th, 2020 agenda in order to have sufficient time to discuss with staff the concerns with this application. Thank you.
Any members? There's no comment concern. I would like to ask the staff to weigh in their position.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff would prefer to have this application heard today. So we are of the opinion that this does not comply to the 4 tests of a minor variance. And at this point, given the kind of policy framework that's around it, especially this brand new Queen Street mixed use transition zone that's been very, very recently put in place for this property, staff are kind of the opinion that our opinion is not going to change based on any additional information coming
Back to Ms. Clark. Could you please comment on staff's this comment?
Yes, I thank Shelby for her comments, and both those received through the recommendation and those she's put forward today. Due to the fact that we did receive the comments on the afternoon of September 3rd, we would appreciate more time to kind of discuss in depth staff's concerns with the application. We believe that there is merit for us to address the 4 tests. We do believe that it will take some discussion with staff and perhaps some more technical support from our end, and we're prepared to do that if given the chance.
Okay, how much time you're suggesting November the 10th to Ms. Clark?
Yes, that's correct, and that gives us a formal filing date of the middle of October.
Okay, so which is another less than month and a half. I do understand staff's opinion, but oftentimes if in the event the application is willing to modify the application maybe later on through the discussions of the staff, I think there's a scope of coming together on the same page. But I do hear staff's comments. Oftentimes we see these applications, even we defer, and we just come back to where we started. So that's why I'm not, oftentimes I'm not in agreement to defer if I don't see any point. But if, as the applicant's authorized agent already expressed that this is, the filing deadline is pretty much a month and a half from now, which is October, middle of October. So I don't think so this is too long of a time, but I just want to make sure with Ms. Corzola, if there's any violation notice, or even if there is, at what stage we are right now. Ms. Corzola, if you're available, please.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there was a zoning violation notice issued earlier this year. That notice is proceeding independent of these proceedings, recognizing that there was little ability for the owner of the property to apply for a variance until very recently. There has been no extension provided. However, the notice still stands, and the applicants are making this effort now to try to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw.
Well, it's good to see the efforts, even though after the notice by the applicant to address any of these notices. But I do agree with staff's position as well. However, I'm in the opinion that by giving them extra couple of months, if there's hope of working them together, that would not hurt anyone, especially the businesses. So therefore, committee members, that's my position. If there's any comment, concern by you, you're more than welcome. Or if there's any motion to proceed, you're more than welcome to put together on the floor. Committee members.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if they were only given the findings a few days ago, I think it's only fair that we give them the opportunity to look into this a little further and maybe make any alterations or adjustments that they need to bring them up to where they need to be in terms of the code. So I'm all for deferring this if anyone else is good with that. So that's my motion to put forward.
Defer to November 10?
To defer this to, is November 10 suitable?
Yes, they requested November 10, Mr. Pope.
And if that's and if that gives them ample opportunity where we're not going to have to extend that any further, then November 10th, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so I'm considering that your motion, Ms. Marcus, you're next, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I am perfectly willing to second the motion, Mr. Cope's motion, and I do agree with all of your comments that we should give the applicant ample opportunity to bring this to a better understanding with the city, if at all possible.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion on the floor put forward by Mr. Cope, seconded by Ms. Marcus. Just for the last time, I would like to go back to Ms. Swinfield quickly, that right now the motion, the committee members has indicated to give the time for a couple of months. in order so there will be opportunity to work. Actually, there will be opportunity for the applicant or the authorized agent to work with the staff and come back with more information if there's any change in the application. So, Mr. Winfield, this is something you think is achievable, even though I know you declare your position, but if they are in consultation with the staff further in regards to this application, this is a good enough time to go back and forth in the discussions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in regard to your question about the timeline, yes, I do think that that will give us enough time to have those needed discussions and kind of come to either a new opinion or the same one that you've seen today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to, through this committee, on behalf of this committee, I would like to address, especially to Ms. Clark. Ms. Clark, please advise your client to act as soon they can on this and provide and get in touch with the staff and so that will give the opportunity in the November 10th hearing for all of us to make the decision on that day.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for all of your comments, and we look forward to working with staff to a resolution and hopefully a positive recommendation in the future.
Okay. So we already have a motion put forward by Mr. Cope, seconded by Ms. Marcus to defer this application on November the 10th. Do we have, everybody is in agreement? Everyone is supporting? Yes, all 5 of us. Anyone opposing? Seeing none, hearing none. So this is carried. This application is going to defer, is deferred till November the 10th. And we'll be hearing this application on November the 10th, just to correct. So now we move on to.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in today's agenda wishes to withdraw or defer their application? I know we had only 3 written requests. There's another one application where staff is suggesting deferral, but I received the letter from the applicant. So that, my understanding is, will go into the regular order. Ms. Myers, if you can please correct, I am in that opinion, and that's my understanding. I'm talking about application. One second. Application B2020-0014. That application is going into their regular agenda item. Correct, Ms. Myers?
Sir, the chair, I can confirm that staff are recommending a deferral of application B 2020-0014. A letter has been received from Humphreys Planning Group in response to staff's comments, so I'm not sure if it is the will of the applicant to proceed with the application or if they want to address committee with that concern.
So, in my opinion, we already received the letter, so that shows that the applicant wants to proceed. So, and the application number is 5, it's in the beginning of the agenda anyway. I would like to go in the regular order, and at that time we can hear because the agent, authorized agent, wants to proceed with the application. So it's better if we keep it in the regular agenda. So if
And through the chair,
unless the committee.
and through the chair, we can call the application in the sequential order as listed on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to my remarks. For those unfamiliar with the Committee of Adjustment procedure and process, I would like to give a brief explanation and scope. Following some procedural matter that we have already undergone, the Secretary Treasurer will call the applications by announcing the application number, the name of the applicant, and address of the property subject to the application. The applicant or authorized agent representing the applicant will then be invited into the meeting by the WebEx event host or Mr. Clerk. I request that you reserve any question or comment pertaining to the staff report until after planning staff has had an opportunity to present. If there's anyone who has registered to participate electronically who wishes to speak to a particular application, you will be given the opportunity to do so when the application is presented and will be invited into the meeting by the WebEx events host. Any decision made here today may be appealed to the LPAT previously through the Ontario Municipal Board. Appeals received in the City Clerk's office associated with minor variance and consent applications will be processed and forwarded to LPAD. This process may be commenced with the Secretary Treasurer by filing a completed appeal form and filing fee within the prescribed 20-day appeal period. Information pertaining to the appeal process may be obtained by contacting the Secretary Treasurer within the City Clerk's office. Now we move on to the consent applications.
B 2020-0012 and related minor variance applications A 2020-0065 and A 2020-066 in the name of 2185715 Ontario Inc. for property located at 11570 McVean Drive. Sorry. My apologies. We should be calling application B 2020-0010, Bursco Limited for the property located on Tracy Boulevard. My apologies.
Mr. Chair, Vladimir Rudenko is here as the agent for this application. And Vladimir, you are in the session. Please address the committee.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and staff. My name is Vladimir Rudenko, and I'm an authorized agent on behalf of the registered owner, Bursco Limited, of the subject lands. The lands are located at the southeast corner of Queen Street East and Delta Park Boulevard. The lands are municipally known as 6 Tracy Boulevard, the lands that are proposed to be severed, and 205 Delta Park Boulevard, the westerly portion of the lands that is to be retained. The lands are currently used for service commercial purposes, and they contain 3 buildings. The lands to be retained, they contain a self-storage building known as Key Storage, and then the lands to the east at Delta Park Boulevard, they contain 2 service commercial buildings with associated parking. The purpose of this application is to request consent to sever a parcel of the land at 6 Tracy Boulevard. And the effect of this application is to create a separate lot at 6 Tracy Boulevard to facilitate financing of the severed parcel. After the severance, both parcels will remain and will be used for service commercial uses. I have reviewed the staff report and the recommended conditions of the application approval and agree with the recommendations of the staff. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. And this would conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Vladimir. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Anyone in the audience or in the public or any concerned neighbor wishes to speak on this application? Seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. As a bit of background on this application, this consent application was previously granted for these lands in this exact same formation. But I guess due to a required conveyance not taking place within that required time, the consent had lapsed. So I just kind of wanted to note that this is the same application as it was before. And staff are recommending approval of the application, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the Secretary Treasurer shall have been satisfied that the following conditions have been fulfilled within 1 year of the mailing date noted below, and the Secretary Treasurer's certificate under the Planning Act shall be given. A, that the Secretary Treasurer's certificate fee shall be paid in the amount current at the time of the issuance of the Secretary Treasurer's certificate, and approval of the draft reference plans as applicable shall be obtained at the Committee of Adjustment office, and the required number of prints of the resultant deposited reference plans shall be received.
Ms. Winfield, are you there?
Yep,
Okay.
sorry.
I thought maybe there are some issues with the audio, but just for the record, I would like to include the TRCA's conditional approval, the correspondence. There's correspondence from TRCA. Did we add that condition as well, Ms. Winfield?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. We received the comments a little bit after the report. Please just give me a second.
That is related with the minor variance application, not the consent, but I believe it's going to be with both the applications. Looking at the same time as you are, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Myers, do you have a copy of the letter available? I don't seem to have received a copy.
Through the chair, the TRCA letter for the consent application and the minor variance application, is that what you're inquiring about?
Yeah. So I can read that condition for the benefit of the committee.
Yeah.
The recommendation by TRCA staff supports conditional approval of minor variance application A2020-051 and the consent application B2020010, subject to the following condition. And the condition is the applicant submit the consent application review fee of $1,400 made payable to the TRCA. So that condition is there by TRCA. So I just read it, and I believe everyone has a copy of it. And so that Mr. Danko, you understand and accept as well this TRCA condition and the conditions put forward by planning staff.
Yes, I understand. I understand this condition, and it relates to the pre-consultation and the deferral of the minor variance application due to the request of the planning staff for pre-consultation with the planning staff. So I believe we will be pre-consulting with TRCA at that time as well.
Okay, if you understand and accept these conditions, as you said you do, looking for a motion to proceed for this consent application. Committee members, if no further question, comment, concern, looking for a motion to proceed.
And through
Motion
the
put forward by Mr. Power, supporting staff recommendation, seconded by Mr. Cope. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none.
Through the chair,
Thank you, Mr.
if I could have clarification on the condition recommended by TRCA, is it the will of committee or staff that that condition be included in the conditions of approval for application B 2020-0010? Are we including that as a condition?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, moving back to applications B0012, B0013, related applications A0065 and A0066 in the name of 2185-715 Ontario Inc. for property located at 11570 McVean Drive.
So, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent, Eric Mertzu from CandiveCon. Eric, you are in the session, so you can activate your mic to address the committee. And we also have residents who wish, or others who are interested to address this matter. Sukhvinder Singh, Teddy Singh, who has not joined the session, Amrit Paul Baines, and Ramnik Baines.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Hello?
Yes, Eric, you there?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and staff. We're here on behalf of the owner at 11570 McBean Drive, requesting several applications. I guess there's 2 consent applications and the variance associated variance applications. So just to give you a bit of a background on this site, we were here previously, I think, over a year ago, for a similar application regarding a severance. And essentially what we're requesting this time is a revised version of that, where there would be 2 consent applications to sever, I guess, 2 lots along McBean Drive. And then the resulting land would be the environmental, it would be essentially valley land in the rear that would go towards, it would be part of, I guess, the conveyance to the city. So in this case, you know, if we want to start with the consent applications, what we are requesting is 2 consent applications along with McBean, which each have 42.5 meters in frontage and approximately 0.3 hectares in area. And associated with those consent applications, we will require some variances. One being the frontage, which is 42.5, and the other being, I guess, the area. So that would be 0.29 hectares is what we're requesting for each property. Associated with each proposed area would be easements, driveway access easements in favor of each other, and an easement in favor to the valley lands beyond to the west there. We have to provide access to maintain those lands. And then that's pretty much, you know, the layout and what we're requesting for this property.
Okay, committee members, any question, comment, or concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none.
We do have a concern with that. We feel like it's just giving like special.
Sorry, 1 second, please. I need to, can you identify your name and address for the record? And I missed the first part, the gentleman who's speaking.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Let Mr. Clerk invite you to speak on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's Sukhvinder Singh who I'm going to be inviting to speak. Sukhvinder, just please wait till you're introduced. And then after Sukhvinder, I have Amrit Paul Baines and Ramnik Baines, but I have them identified in the session as Jess Karen Baines, so I'll be unmuting their mic after Mr. Singh addresses the committee. Go ahead, Mr. Singh. Please go ahead. Your mic's unmuted.
So what we feel like, we don't want special treatment for anyone, including us, but giving, like dividing the lot into a special parcel, is just giving special treatment to someone else, especially because he was ex-mayor. So we feel like that it's not fair for us.
We are the owners of 11518 McBean, the neighboring property.
And also special road at the back. Has to be accessed to the property.
And there's a road that has to be accessed to the backside of the property,
Which has been blocked,
which has been blocked.
just on the line.
Through the chair, I'm not understanding who's speaking.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Singh, it sounds like there's 2 people speaking. Is it yourself and Teddy Singh?
Yes, it is. We are both owners of the neighboring property.
Mr. Teddy Singh, you need to introduce yourself before speaking, please, so we can get it for the
My
record.
name is Teddy Singh.
And your address?
11518 McBean Drive. I have ownership in that property.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
So I feel like that there's be some special treatment going on over here where it's 1 acre severance when it's a subdivision area, and the road is going to block the backside of my property.
Okay, so my name is Sukhvinder, also 11518 McBean Drive. As you can see in the planning, that there's a road going through the back of the property. It stops right before ours, so we have no access to almost 1.25 acres at the back of our land. So, like, what would we do to get access to that land?
Okay. Your concern has been noted. Anybody else who wishes to speak on this application? I would ask Mr. Mauricio if you would like to comment on this before I go to the staff.
So, Mr. Chair, we do have another.
Yes, sure. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, my apologies. We do have another person who would like to speak. They've identified themselves as Amrit Paul Baines and Ramnik Baines. We do have somebody identified as Jess Karen Baines, who I will be unmuting. Jess Karen Baines, you're unmuted. I just can you please identify yourself and your municipal address for the committee?
Hi, this is Jess Karen Baines, and I'm the owner of 11423 McGreen Drive, right across the street. I'm also opposing this the severance of this lot here because I'm building over there 12 to 13 lots, and this would impact me.
Okay.
And with all the whole area around being subdivision and this being the only lot that's going to be a severance into 1 acre estate lots, I don't find it fair.
Okay. Your comments has been noted by the committee. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point?
Mr. Chair, sorry, it's Peter again. My apologies. There is somebody else who's identified themselves as Bhupinder Chalian, who wishes to oppose this motion and speak. I'm going to be unmuting your microphone, and can you please identify yourself and your municipal property for the record? Go ahead, Bhupinder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, could we have all the other microphones muted?
To everyone else who is not speaking or even still on the call, if you can mute your microphone, that will help us.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I'll try again for Bhupinder. Please make sure all other audio sources are turned off so there is no feedback. I'm going to unmute your microphone. If it doesn't work, Mr. Chair, I'm going to suggest we move on. So go ahead, Bhupinder.
Hi, my name is Bhupinder. I currently do oppose against this motion as well, and I am currently the owner of 11518 McVean Drive as well.
Okay, Mr. Clark, anybody else is on your list?
Mr. Chair, I do have Sukhvinder Singh again, who wishes to address the committee and make further comments if the committee wishes to allow.
Mr. Singh, can you please unmute your mic and if you wishes to speak?
Okay. We just wanted to say that we just want back access to the property as like the final thing, because there's no way for us to access the property if there is, like if you approve the lot or even from before, there's just, the road gets stopped right at the end of our lot.
Okay, you mean the next door property which is owned by you, Mr. Singh? That's what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have our staff's comments on this. And then maybe we can go back to Mr. Mauricio to comment on particular to this question and concern. Okay, staff. I'm sorry, my apologies, Mr. Clerk. If no, I believe we have listened or given the opportunity to each and every concerned neighbor who wishes to address according to your list.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I do have about 2 pages of recommendations here, so it's going to be a little bit wordy. But I would like to first say that staff recommend that the applications be formally approved in the following order: B 2020-0012, A 2020-0065, B 2020-0013, and then A 2020-0066. This specific order just kind of ensures that all of these pieces come together in the right way for this project to work. So staff recommend that applications A 2020 and A 2020-0065 and A 2020-0066 are supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Number 2, that related consent applications B 2020-0012 and B 2020-0013 be approved. And number 3, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. And that applications B 2020-0012 and B 2020-0013 are supportable subject to the following conditions being imposed. That related applications A 2020-0065 and A 2020-0066 be approved. Number 2, that the Secretary Treasurer shall have been satisfied that the following conditions have been fulfilled within 1 year of the mailing date noted below, and the Secretary Treasurer's certificate under the Planning Act shall be given. The Secretary Treasurer's certificate fee shall be paid in the amount current at the time of the issuance of the certificate. Approval of the draft reference plans as applicable shall be obtained at the Committee of Adjustment office, and the required number of prints of the resultant deposited reference plans shall be received. Number 3, that the owner is to convey at the owner's expense a 7.85 meter right-of-way widening along with the associated temporary grading easements and permanent easement for storm outfall to the city along the entire frontage of McBean Drive from both the retained and severed lands to the city to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Public Works and Engineering. For lands that are being conveyed to the city, be simple, they are required to be conveyed free of all encumbrances, and for the easements that are being conveyed to the city, there to be a priority to all other encumbrances to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Public Works and Engineering. There's another condition relating to the approval of a draft reference plan. That number 4, that the access easements approved by the Committee of Adjustment will be in perpetuity and will be to the satisfaction of the city's Legal Services Division, Corporate Services Department, and the Commissioner of Public Works and Engineering. That prior to the issuance of the certificate of the Secretary Treasurer, the owner be required to enter into consent agreement for the severed and retained lands, which consent agreement shall be registered on title to the lands subject to the application in priority to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Planning, Building, and Economic Development Services and the city solicitor. The consent agreement shall generally include the following, but not be limited to, that the owner of both the retained and severed lands agree to obtain site plan approval from the city if there are any changes to the design or location of accesses to McBean Drive. Upon request of the city, the owner of both the retained and severed lands shall agree to provide an access easement in favor of the properties to the north, including the severed lands 11636 McBean Drive and 11762 McBean Drive to the satisfaction of the city. The owner acknowledges this will require an attendance before the Committee of Adjustment, and they will be responsible for all costs associated with obtaining the easement unless other arrangements are agreed upon with the owners benefiting from the easement. Upon that easement being obtained, the access to McBean Drive from the lands conveying the easement may be permanently closed at the discretion of the city. A repeat of that condition, however, this condition is in favor of the severed lands to the south, 11570 McBean Drive and 11518 McBean Drive to the satisfaction of the city. D, that the owner provide the securities requested by staff based on the cost of removing the access to McBean Drive and reinstating the boulevard. E, that the owners of the severed and retained lots are responsible for restoring the boulevard at the owner's expense to the satisfaction of the city if one of the accesses to McBean Drive on the retained or severed lots is closed. And finally, that the owner agrees and covenants that it will register and convey the easements that it applied for in this application at the same time that the severed and retained lands are legally created to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Planning, Building, and Economic Development Services. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of conditions, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enfield. Since you're here, if you can address some of those comments and the concerns expressed by the neighbor, like there was some entrance proposed from the back, or if there will be any entrance issue for the next door neighbor, is that something you want to comment about?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just hoping that the neighbor could clarify when they're referring to a road being installed, is what they're referring to the easement that's being established through this application? Because generally associated with this application, to my knowledge, there's not a separate road being proposed to access those lands at the back, as those environmental lands are being conveyed in one giant chunk, so that they're merged with a subdivision application to the south, and eventually the environmental lands will be conveyed for just conservation purposes. So I kind of first need clarification on what the neighbors are referring to as the road.
That's exactly my question is, because I can see there's a conservation land at the back, and when the concerned neighbor expressed that there's entrance will be blocked from the back, I could not really understand exactly what the concerned neighbor meant. So I would like to give opportunity one more time to the concerned neighbor. If you can, if you wish to say something further for the clarity, as I asked the staff, as you mentioned, I would like to go back to Mr. Singh, the next door neighbor.
Go ahead, Mr. Singh.
Hi, Winder here. There is a road proposed at the back side, which will be started from the Mayfield Road all the way to the end, and 11518 has been excluded. That's the last property before the other. After that property, there is a subdivision. So this is completely a subdivision area. You must give an assess on the backside of the road. Shelby is aware. We have been notified her already. She's a planner. As well as we will not accept any variation of the standard. It is a state or transition state lots, has to be built according to the original plan. There shouldn't be anyone having a special treatment regarding if it's ex-mayor or anyone. We are not looking for any special treatment. We request, otherwise we have to take this issue to all the avenues, including media and other places. The reason is the road has been blocked off. You can see the planning and the back road, which has been proposed, one from the McQueen Road, one is from the Mayfield Road, has to go on the new subdivision which will be built. And we do not have any access to the property whatsoever. On the back side of the lot, there is a ravine line. You cannot go through the ravine line. So we have to have access on that property, which is a 1.25 acre.
Mr. Singh, let me just interrupt you quickly. But you have the access from the McQueen Drive at the front.
So this property, the way this property has been built in the McQueen Drive, yes, we do have access. On the back side, there is a ravine bed which divides the property in two pieces. The back side of the piece has no access whatsoever unless the city is willing to provide access from the ravine. Because there is a ravine line in between the property which divides the property in two pieces.
So sorry, Mr. Singh, if I'm correct, so the ravine divide your property into two pieces, that's what you're saying?
Yes, please, on the back side of it.
If I go back to the
slide, and there's a proposed road on the back side. It stops at before our property, which is supposed to go through the property. And that our property is the last property. Then there is a ravine behind it again. So this is very unfortunate. The access has been denied to just one property. Who has done that? Who has made the planning? Who didn't saw that a lot behind the property? This is a ravine area. There has to be studies done on it.
So
completely out of.
Hold on, please. What I see here, we have a correspondence from TRCA stating no objection on this application, this request by 11570 McQueen Drive. However, any other correspondence with TRCA would help, but based on these applications, the TRCA is stating no objection and no concern over this proposal. But thank you for your time, Mr. Singh. I'll go back to staff one more time to address this.
We were not aware of what's been done. This is a one-sided application and special treatment. This is a city is, I think, violating the kind of a standardized procedure. One side you are blocking our access to the property on the backside unless they provide us a helipad to land there. Because there will be no access to the property whatsoever, no access, completely no access. One lot. How you can stop one lot not to have access from the road being proposed? Right? 1.25 acre. It's not a 200 feet land. It's a full wide width, it's a full developable land and has been blocked. On the other side, you're giving a special treatment to give a one lot a special when it's a complete subdivision. I live also in the area. Mr. Singh is also living in that same area. So what happens is, let's be reasonable. Let's do a study. Ask all the departments so we can approach us. Rather, give us more details on from where they got an approvals so that we can notify them that we have some concerns about this division. We need a further studies. We need a time to come back. So we need at least all studies with the environmental and everything else.
I guess all those things will be dealt at the site plan stage, Mr. Singh. At this time, this is application for the severance. Whenever there is going to be any structure to be built on these lots in the future, at that time, those environmental reports will come into effect. To the staff, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I'm kind of having a look at the air photos in the area, just trying to figure out which part of the property it is that we're referring to when we're talking about the road. And to the west of the property, so kind of beyond those environmental lands, there is an active subdivision application that has an incomplete road that will be using some of the severed lands to complete those roads there. And then through that subdivision process, natural studies regarding that natural area and where the limits of development will be taken care of in that regard. But through you, Mr. Chair, to the neighbor, is that the roadway that they're referring to?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly, I'm looking into it.
Mr. Chair, would you wish to hear from the resident again? His microphone is muted at the moment.
Sure, if a resident wants to comment one more time before we proceed. And committee members, if there is any question, comment, concern at this point, you're more than welcome to ask and speak. And then
yes, please. Yes, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, if he could just clarify this whole road conflict that he's having, just so it can give us a better perspective as to what we're looking at here. Because I've got it up on Google Earth right now, and I'm just trying to determine as to what road he's speaking of. If he could just be a little more specific and perhaps guide us through that to help us with our decision here.
Mr. Singh, if you can please just talk about the road or the back of the property, what you mentioned.
Yeah, you could see it. We can put it in there. You see that? We have.
No, they can't see.
Go ahead, Mr. Singh.
So going back, the planner just mentioned that when they're going to determine the back road when we have submit an application for the subdivision. That means it has been determined by the city planning department that this particular land, complete land, has been determined and designated for state lots. That means why in a state lots 1 acre special treatment to one person? Any logical reason? 2 kilometers either way. There is no single state lot at all. Then why is one person or one particular person, especially an influential person, is having an access to have a state lot when our planner just admitted that this is a subdivision, a state lot subdivision? We're not asking more or less. All we're saying is hold back this decision and take our proper request of our opposition. Otherwise, we're gonna use the media and and the city has to know the consequences of it.
Well, Mr. Singh, that's all. Sorry if I tell everyone, Mr. Singh, you have all the rights to use your channels, whatever you want to do. However, this committee only deals with this application. I just want to bring that on record. But you're more than welcome to use whatever you want to express, and that's why I'm coming back and forth again to you, so this committee can hear you loud and clear and make our decision accordingly.
Then we request our chair and the members of the board, please consider our request of not providing and assess a special treatment to one person, especially who runs the city for years. This creates a fear in our mind that common people will be struggling with the decisions at the city hall. This is building the confidence of the residents in the area. You have here the next door lot, you have here from across the street, and this has not been communicated to the rest of the neighborhood. If you want to do a study, send an application, assess to everyone. So whole neighborhood will oppose it.
Let me ask you one more thing, Mr. Singh, since you're bringing this. Your property address is 11518, right?
Please.
What is located exactly south of your property? Those lots are not estate lots. Those are the subdivisions,
They have
right?
been already approved by the city on a city records. Just as 50 subdivision lots.
Is not a state lot.
They're not state lots anymore.
Yeah, so
it's already at the city documents.
So that's why I'm saying here, as it's right now on the screen, if you can see, the next to you are the subdivision lots, not the state lots, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We don't want
because you just mentioned that it has to be a state lot, and
it's a state subdivision, which is 45 feet minimum. 45 to 50, 55. These are the lots considered, but I meant not the state itself.
Not a state lot.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Because when it's a state subdivision, that's 45, transition is 45 feet lot, and 50 feet is a subdivision lots. These are all subdivision. There is none state left in that particular pocket. Neither on the north side, neither on the south, nor east or west, all four corners from that particular properties, two properties, adjoining properties. None.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Singh. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, sir.
As you mentioned, because once you say state, so that's where I was confused. But back to the staff, what will be the frontage of these two lots? The application came forward in front of us.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the frontage of the two lots, one of them will be approximately 42.5 meters, which is 140 feet, give or take. And the other one will be the exact same, almost about 140 feet. So very well within that estate residential designation requirement.
Okay. Back to committee members, if there's any question, comment, concern you want to make into it. And just after you, I just want to bring Mr. Maurizio one more time back into the discussion because he's been quiet for some time, and if he would like to add something into it and explain what are the next procedures and stuff, if he wishes to simply add something about it.
Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Maurizio.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that, Shelby. Appreciate it. But basically just to address a couple things here. Again, as you guys have seen, this is a first severance along McBean. The lands to the back will eventually be conveyed. Their environmental lands or valley lands. The severance to the front will have driveway easement accesses going north and south. Essentially, if those neighboring lots want to develop in the future, we would have access as essentially a service kind of road or access for them in place. The other access easement we have is strictly going through the front of McBean to the west into the valley lands for purposes of maintenance and city purposes. That's all that one is for. With regards to the neighbor's comments across the street, he mentioned something about a subdivision. I think he's referring to the one that's to the west end of the property, and that's going through a draft plan of subdivision. And they have access separately. They're not accessing through the valley or anything like that. They have separate access off different roads, and they're ways away. So I think just to clarify, like we have showing easements for driveway access for north and south properties, and as well as to the into the Valley Lands for maintenance purposes.
Okay. So just if committee members, if you have any more question or concern at this point, this is your time. Otherwise, I would like to proceed for the next step, unless staff wishes to add something further. Ms. Winfield, as Mr. Mauricio highlighted a few things, and so as the concerned neighbors.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think we need to comment. I agree with kind of what Mr. Martzu summarized there.
Okay. Committee members, who wishes to speak or add anything? Yes, Ms. Marcus, please go ahead.
Well, so for what I understand is that these lots are quite conforming with what's going on in the neighborhood already. And from my inspection of the property, it doesn't seem that this is completely out of norm with what's going on in the neighborhood. There are smaller lots on both sides of McBean, and I'm quite confident that our city staff and planners would never allow for somebody to be landlocked at the end of this process. That being said, and if there's no comments from my colleagues, I'm quite confident that to approve this application as it is before us. But I'll let my colleagues also make a comment on this.
Thank you, Ms. Marcus. Anybody else from the committee members wishes to speak or add anything? Mr. Pope, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have to concur with the fact that I think the city has done their due diligence in terms of their observations, any reports that have been brought forward. And I certainly understand the neighboring houses and their perspectives and the people that have brought themselves here today to express their concerns. And like I said, we hear them, we understand what you're saying, but we certainly have the utmost confidence in our committee and our staff to put forward an unbiased approach and a determination, which I'm very confident that they've done so. And if that, I'm going to second, obviously, Christine on this to move forward with it by agreeing with staff's recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cope. So we have a motion to approve by Ms. Marcus and seconded by Mr. Cope. Before I call the vote on it, I just want to address all the concerned neighbors. I want to thank them for coming forward. But at the same time, I want to tell the staff to work with the next door neighbor and address their concerns, or if there's any road work or anything as the gentleman continuously addressing, and if near future we can address them and maybe through, I know the city hall is not open, so if there could be set up any other meeting with them, whether that's online or maybe through some emails, and to the concerned neighbor at the next door that right now the committee has expressed their wishes to move ahead with this particular application. However, all those environmental assessments as indicated by the next door neighbor, those will become into effect at the time of when there is some proposal on that individual land, if there is some structure is going to be built. So I'm sure at those site plan application stage, there will be all those reports come into in effect. So if no other parties wishes to speak or add anything, I have a motion on the floor to support staff recommendation by Ms. Marcus and seconded by Mr. Pope. If no one else wishes to add anything, I would like to call the vote on it. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, sorry, it's Peter. I do have the two residents, Mr. Singh and Bhupinder Chalian, who wish to address the committee.
Sorry, Mr. Clerk, can you please light Mr. Singh and who else?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Would you like to hear them again?
No, so you address You mentioned something when we were calling the vote, so I cannot really hear properly. You said something about Mr. Singh, and I could not hear anything after that.
My apologies. So I do see in the chat function that Mr. Singh would still like to address the committee if the committee wishes to hear from him, as well as Mr. I believe it's Chalian would also like to address the committee, and he was a resident that spoke at the end. So it's entirely up to the committee if you still wish to hear them. We'll unmute their mic if the committee wishes to hear from them.
Yeah, sure. Any new information if they wishes to speak, and especially the other gentleman you mentioned, if he has not really got the chance to speak yet, as long as he's providing you he or she are providing you the address and everything, if you can note, then I don't mind hearing them out.
Thank you. Bhupinder, your microphone's unmuted. Please go ahead and add some new information.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I would just like to say that if you see both from north, south, east, or west of this property, it's all subdivision lots. There's no estate lots that are 1 acres. They're all subdivisions that are 45, 50, 60 lots. So why is it unjust that these guys get a special designation of having their 1 acre lots?
Thank you. And Sukhvinder, I'm going to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead.
When Mr. Singh is here, when we came to the city hall requesting to have subdivide the land, we were told to work with the next door neighbors to have a longer assess in and out. So when you are giving a state law to one particular as a special treatment, which we could see how this committee has been inclined towards it, then you are blocking off the 11518 not to develop that piece of land, because unless the city is giving us in and out access on that property on 300 feet roughly. So if you're giving a special treatment, at least give us access that. Otherwise, we won't be able to do anything.
Mr. Singh, sorry.
I'm talking about the front on McQueen Road. It's very clear. If you block with 1 acre lot and very next door, how the city is proposing to work with the next door neighbor when they are behind the scene, they are approving a 1 acre lot. That means just making people foolish. This planner told us the same statement, that you have to work with the next door. That way you have 600 or 900 feet front on the McQueen Road, you have one in and one out. So that way you can develop the land in a state subdivision. Subdivision, let me say by that. This has been blocking us off completely, blocking the back access, blocking the front access.
Mr. Singh, can you hear me? Mr. Singh, can you hear me? Other committee members can hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Chair.
I can hear you.
Okay. So, to me, what it looks like, for this property, the application came forward. Their frontage and Mr. Singh's property, which is immediate south of this property, if I'm correct, that's what my understanding is, and that's where the numbers indicate. Their frontage on McQueen is the same. Back to Ms. Winfield, if I'm not wrong, that's how it looks like to me. And it's showing like 85 meters for this subject application, and it looks like more or less something similar to the next door property.
For you, Mr. Chair, yes, the two properties have incredibly similar frontages. I would imagine it's only a few meters, maybe either way different. I would also point out for the benefit of the committee and perhaps those neighbors as well that the adjacent property to the south is also designated as estate residential. It holds the same designation that the subject property does. So it's not that a special designation has been applied to this property. It's all of these larger remaining lots within this area are within that estate residential designation.
So just I want to ask you, and please answer if you can. As you mentioned, the same designation apply on 11518. In the event if in the future they are coming with some sort of the similar proposal, the same manner as this application is being treated, would they be coming through the same procedure, and the same criteria will be implemented on that application at 11518 in the future if they wish to come.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. If they wish to put forward a proposal exactly like this one, they would be required to go through the exact same steps of appearing before the committee, obtaining that consent, obtaining any required variances. And then a main issue that the resident did note there was when he spoke to planning staff, they said you have to work with your neighboring property owners to establish an access. Now, the goal of planning staff at this time is to close as many singular accesses off of McLean as possible for traffic. So essentially, with the conditions that we're proposing to impose upon this subject application, it requires this landowner to provide an easement over his property for those lands to the south. So we've definitely made provisions that, you know, if those lands to the south chooses to change or develop, there is a route there for them to have access. We've checked that box.
I get it now 100%. It's going to be the similar way north of Countryside on Goreway. There's about 10 homes and there's a one access. So for these two new lots, which this front applicant is requesting, there will be one access from McQueen instead of two separate. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So in the event if 11518 wishes to come forward for sometime in the future, so there will be an easement that their access will be coming in the same way, parallel to the McQueen Road, in order for anyone to avoid too many accesses on McQueen. So they will be having an easement, and the access will be granted on these two lots being put forward in front of us.
Yes, that's completely correct, Mr. Chair.
So I guess I personally got the answers. So if there's no further question, comment, or concern, committee members, unless
Mr.
anyone
Chair,
wishes to add anything, we
Mr.
have
Chair.
heard the neighbors. They do have some concerns. Some of them I find really valid concerns, as I would do if I'm the property owner. Or I think the best is to work with all parties and narrow down any of those concerns they may have. And if there is any future application is coming, whether in front of this committee or in the council or the planning staff, at that time, these applications will be looked after. If we go further on Goreway, south of Countryside, I remember last year or earlier this year, there's another application came in, and at that time, the same easement was granted through one of the code. It's called Nelly Code. So I do remember that application as well. So committee members, if there's anything anyone wishes to add or put forward the motion, we already have motion put forward. If there's any amendment or anything wishes to add anything, this is your time now, and the floor is open for.
Sorry, Ron, it's Eric again. I just have one comment. Sorry to interrupt. With the conditions put forward, I guess the recommendations in the report, I do have a wording change request, just one word actually. It's 5B and 5C. Within those paragraphs there, it mentions that there's a word that says obtaining. So it says committee of adjustment. The owner acknowledges this will require an attendance before committee of adjustment and that they will be responsible for obtaining all costs with obtaining this easement. We want to change that obtaining to providing this easement because we would be providing it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff have no concerns with that little change.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's Peter. The adjacent landowner, Mr. Singh, would like to address the committee again, and I'll leave it in the committee's hands if you wish to hear from him again.
Mr. Singh, with all due respect, my committee members have already indicated that we have already discussed enough. However, I'm pleased to give you 30 more seconds, but please be specific and don't talk about anything you already said. Any new information, please, for next 30 seconds.
Mayfield, you have already given assess to develop the land and given a smaller assess. would this committee allow us to have one assessed the way it is, and left and right we could develop this 50 feet lots? Because total the width of the lot is around 300 feet. If we consider it 60 feet or 70 feet for the middle road and goes all the way at the circle, so it would be a one assessed in and out, but same time 50 by 100 feet both sides lots. Would this committee consider? Because the planner told us not to do that.
Okay, so
work with the next door neighbor. I also have to add, this committee will be approving only one estate lot in the whole subdivision, which is beyond.
So, Mr. Singh, please.
On the page,
Mr. Singh, you're not listening to me. Please allow me to speak as well.
Mr. Chair, his microphone's muted.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was going to have a quick conversation with Mr. Singh. You can unmute his mic for very quick, Mr. Clerk. I know everyone wants to move forward, but I just want to give ample opportunity to Mr. Singh so he doesn't feel that, we did not allow him to speak. Mr. Singh, are you there? But please allow me to speak, okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, Mr. Singh, in the future, if you would like to come forward for your application, that will be a completely separate application. Instead of proposing the 2 lots as this your next door neighbor has proposed, if you would like to come for more lots, or you're proposing something different, whether you are using this easement or you're requesting for a direct access from McQueen, that will be a separate application. And at that time, obviously, if you need the committee, you can always come forward in front of the committee at that time, and so as the staff can look into in all different manner. So, however, at this point, the way you're addressing things, what you're talking, and that means you must have some sort of knowledge in terms of lots and subdivisions. Right now, we are looking at the property. The application is put forward in front of us, which is the next door neighbor. To my honest opinion, getting that easement is in a good way. Like if I have some sort of interest in the property where you are, to me, that's actually good for me, because if in the event I'm getting whether 2 or 3 lots in the future, it's not safe to get the direct access to a main road like McQueen Drive. And actually people don't want to have direct access to the main road in the event if you're developing or any other provisions in the future. So I think, this will be more of a court location, even if you don't change anything in the future as it proposed through this easement. However, you're more than welcome to bring any of those applications. If your planner or yourself think differently, you can always come to the staff, and if in that stage you need to have some sort of provisions under the Planning Act, you need to come to the committee, you're more than welcome to attend at that time. But thank you for your time today, for bringing all your concern and all the concerned neighbors. And this is all I want to say before I proceed with the rest of my committee members.
My final comments is, with all due respect, we appreciate the time has been given to us to explain.
Thank
but
you.
This committee is already established the decision before the meeting starts. That's what we feel it. That's what is determining it. Thank you very much for all your time. This is the fact.
Mr. Singh. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you,
Anyway,
Mr. Chair. I think we should move to a vote.
So, okay, committee members, I would follow your wishes. However, the motion was put forward to move ahead by Ms. Marcus and Mr. Cope. There is a minor change in staff's recommendation.
One-sided decision.
Can you mute his mic, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the microphone is muted.
Committee members, if you wishes to withdraw your motion and add amended recommendations, that will help the committee and in the procedure for Ms. Myers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am willing to go with the new wording for us put forward by the staff. And I stand by my earlier comments that we as a committee work with each individual application as it comes to us. And we are dealing with one application today, not the application of the concerned neighbors. And when the concerned neighbors have their application in front of us, we will, of course, give it the exact same attention that we gave to the current application.
So, back to, just to clarify, Ms. Marcus, you're adding you're withdrawing your motion and adding, putting forward a new motion with the, you're supporting staff recommendation, amended staff recommendation. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, do we have a seconder for this motion? Mr. Cope?
Yep.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried unanimously. So this application has been approved as presented with the amended staff recommendations. However, I would encourage all parties, including the neighbors, to work with the staff and for any of those future discussion regarding the next door property or any other property across the street. Thank you very much, Ms. Myers. If you can call the next application. The microphone is mute, Ms. Myers, I guess.
Oh, calling application B 2020-0014, 1968611 Ontario Limited. Property is located at Ace Drive in Brampton.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the agent, Rosemary Humphreys, is participating in this session. Rosemary, you are in as a panelist. You can unmute your microphone and please address the committee.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Humphreys. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Rosemary Humphreys, and I represent the applicant here today. What we are proposing to do is effectively do a lot addition by conveying 0.98 hectares of land from existing block 11 to join it with existing block 10. So we're not creating a new, another parcel of land. We're just reconfiguring the two existing lots that exist today between Ace Drive and Dixie Road. Now, the reason why we had provided the correspondence to the committee for its consideration is when we did receive the comment late last week, we were a little bit surprised to hear that staff were recommending a deferral of the application so that we could submit a minor variance application to deal with how the zoning bylaw would apply to the subject properties. And perhaps some additional information would clarify why we don't really want to go through that process. Effectively, we will be submitting a zoning application and a site plan application to the city in very short order. The zoning application will effectively deal with the proposed land uses and existing land uses on the site and can at the same time deal with this minor variance issue that staff has raised and requested that that be dealt at, earlier rather than later. So I didn't really want to have to go through somewhat of a duplication of planning application processes, given time and money involved. The other aspect here is that we do have a live real estate transaction happening, and the applicant is under quite a bit of stress in terms of trying to get applications in the door with the city for employment and industrial uses. And we didn't want to wait to have to file a variance application for such. Staff had also indicated that we needed to have a pre-consultation meeting for the site plan application. We've already had one for the zoning aspect of the matter. That is actually happening today. And that submission or request was made some time ago, and today was the first availability that staff were able to provide to us. So effectively what I'm saying is, I believe that the committee could find merit in approving the lot addition application and making a condition, if it so felt necessary, that the issue that's outlined in staff regarding that lands be considered for one lot for the bylaw purposes, that issue could be included as a condition by the committee that the applicant either submit a zoning bylaw application, which he will be doing, or submit a future minor variance application in the event that a zoning application is not dealt with. But quite frankly, we will be dealing with zoning regardless. So it's for those reasons that we wanted to move forward with the application today. I guess the other aspect is we cannot submit a zoning application for lands which we do not own. And until the committee approves this lot addition application, it would be very difficult for the applicant to finalize retainers to complete the site plan submission requirements without knowing that there was support for this lot addition application. So there are a number of things that are dependent on one another in terms of moving forward. Time is of the essence in terms of my client's perspective. This application will ultimately result in further economic activity in the city. And for those reasons, we are requesting that the committee approve the application with the condition that that a future zoning application, or I'll leave it vague, or variance application be submitted or approved that deals with the zoning matter identified by staff on the subject property. Those are my comments. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Hearing none. Anyone else wishes to speak on this application? Any concerned neighbor or any other correspondence? Hearing none. I know the staff has suggested a deferral, so I would like to go to staff and hear their opinion. And please address these comments made by the applicant agents, the applicant's representative.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Sorry, it's just fiddling with my mic there. Through you, Mr. Chair. So staff are of the opinion that the application should be deferred. While in our recommendation, I did put down that no later than the last hearing of 2020. Staff are not necessarily seeking a very, very long deferral for this application. All we're trying to achieve is that the consent application and variance application would be before you at the same time, so that the committee has the benefit of evaluating the entire proposal as a whole. Typically to impose a condition of approval for the consent application that a minor variance application would need to be approved, or that a rezoning application would need to be approved, would be, so to speak, to kind of prejudge that those applications will be deemed acceptable as well. So at the very least, for that reason, to kind of impose that condition is to prejudge those other applications, which we don't want to do without that full picture and proposal in front of us. And given that the site plan pre-consultation was happening today, we just wanted to kind of give the applicant the chance to get that feedback, submit that minor variance. You know, maybe there's something else that comes up in the pre-consultation that could also be dealt with by way of a variance. We just wanted committee to have that kind of full picture to make a decision on.
Yes, Ms. Winfield.
I'm sorry, that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Back to the representative.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm a little bit concerned because the lot addition that is before you for consideration does not create any zoning deficiencies in terms of lot area or frontage. So the reconfiguration of the parcel still, in fact, conforms to the zoning bylaw requirements that apply to the property. There was, in fact, a rezoning application on these lands, which was approved about a year ago or so, which is where this zoning matter about the two lots be considered as one for the purposes of the bylaw was actually implemented at the time. Because at that time, those two blocks were in fact going to be developed together as a single property. That, however, is no longer the case. The concern that I have is that we have to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to deal with the land uses on the property. And there's no reason why we can't deal with this bylaw exception that staff has indicated through the zoning process. What effectively staff are trying to ask for is that we submit not only a zoning application, but also a minor variance application. That seems to me a lot of duplication in accomplishing the same thing at the end of the day. Lot addition applications are consent applications. The applicant has a period of 1 year to satisfy the conditions, or else the approval lapses. So I guess the onus is, what I'm trying to tell you is the onus is on the applicant to get its zoning application in with the site plan and deal with this deficiency that staff have raised with you through another process. It doesn't circumvent or presuppose that the consent application is not valid or not. The actual creation of the lots themselves or the reconfiguration does comply with the bylaw. It's how an application for the lands themselves is going to be looked at as it relates to zoning requirements in terms of parking requirements and whatnot. That is something that quite simply can be dealt with through zoning application while the site plan application is being considered by staff. So I do disagree with your staff and their comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphreys, for your comments. We listened to you and we listened to the staff. I'm in the personal opinion of that staff. I tend to agree with staff's position that the time they need. However, I do understand and I do share your concern that, you know, it's a timely manner, but to me, they have put the committee, they have suggested, the staff recommend to the committee that this application to be here at no later than the last committee hearing of 2020, so, which is not really 1 year or so, but at the same time, I do hear, but at this point, for me to make the decision on this, I would agree with the staff's position that this application to be deferred, so we can have all those information is in front of us, so it will be easy for the benefit of the committee to make the decision. I see the hand of Mr. Cope. So, Mr. Cope, if want to add something or wishes to add something?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I want to just concur with the fact that I think it's in the best interest that we do defer this. I think just to mitigate any problems down the road or any maybe concerned area tenants or neighbors or any conflict that someone may think they're bringing up, I want to make sure that staff has done their due diligence to cover everything off. And with respect, all due respect to the applicant, we appreciate what you brought forward, but sometimes we got to look at the greater good in the long term here. And I think for the staff to do their due diligence and everyone to do their job to the best of their ability, I think in this particular application, deferring is going to be in everyone's best interest. So that's the motion that I'm going to move forward, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Staff's recommendations.
Supporting staff recommendation, the motion has been put forward by Mr. Cope. Mr. Power, you wishes to add something, or you want to second the motion?
I would just like to, through you, Mr. Chair, just second the motion. I think we need to have all information ahead of us before we make a decision.
Okay. So motion put forward by Mr. Cope to support staff recommendation, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none. So this is supported by this committee unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Calling application A2020-0053, Rai Gurinder, and the property is located at 14 Everglade Drive.
Mr. Chair, it's Peter. We do not have any, there was an agent identified and the property owner. They were sent emails with links to today's meeting, and we do not have anybody on today's session related to this item.
So let's put this application at the end of the agenda, and we'll wait if they join, or maybe if someone can make some attempt to to reach out, if that is possible, because this is a house, and I can see if they wish to make any changes, and they're waiting for this approval to be done. This is the time now before the winter days are coming in, and then they won't be able to work much. They can still do and alter all those changes in their backyard. So, Ms. Myers, if you can please call the next application, and we'll wait this application one more time at the end of the agenda.
Calling application A 2020-0054, PD Commercial Mayfield Road, Inc., and the property is addressed as 1455, 1465, and 1475 Mayfield Road.
So, Mr. Chair, the agent Colin Chung and Taranjeet Grewal are in today's session. Colin Chung, you are in the session. You can unmute your microphone. Taranjeet, I will unmute your microphone because I cannot pull you into the session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, and members of committee. My name is Colin Chung of Glenn Schnarr Associates. I'm going to defer to my colleague, Taranjeet Grewal, to make the presentation, and Taranjeet and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As Colin Chung, my colleague, just said, my name is Taranjeet Grewal, and I'm a planner with Glenn Schnarr Associates, Inc. I'm here on behalf of our client, 2723292 Ontario, Inc., who have currently entered into an agreement with the registered owners, PD Commercial Mayfield Road, Inc., care of Paradise Developments. So I'm here to speak to you regarding the minor variance application for the lands municipally addressed as 1455, 1465, and 1475 Mayfield Road for Unit C4. Our client is seeking approval for a Kumon Center, which would be a commercial school use on the subject lands. These lands were subject to a minor variance application in 2019, which was approved to permit a supermarket, a minimum of 100 parking spaces, a minimum of 7 stacking spaces for a restaurant drive-through, and a minimum setback of 1.5 meters to a daylight triangle. Currently, we are seeking relief from the City of Brampton zoning bylaw to permit a commercial school use in Unit C4 of the development, whereas the Highway Commercial 1 zone currently does not permit a commercial school use. We thank staff for their comments on the requested variance. Thank you.
Many members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Staff, sorry if there's anyone who wishes to speak from the neighbor or any other concerned member of the public. Seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0054 and find it to be supportable. We have no recommended conditions. Thank you.
Okay. Second, please. Okay, committee members, if no further discussions, just looking for a motion to support this application. Motion put forward by Mr. Cope to support this application, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, this is voted unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the committee. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Calling application A 2020-0055, Padge Realty 3, Inc. Property is addressed as 75 and 85 Ace Drive.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Elroy Van Grol is present on behalf of the applicant, and Elroy, you are brought into the session. Your microphone is active. You can address the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Fay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and staff. My name is Elroy Van Groel. I'm the architect and applicant for this proposal for the Performance Auto Group. This is a very simple variance request. We are simply asking for a small change to the setback for the building. The variance that we are asking for is to allow an 18.82 meter front yard setback, where the bylaw requires an 8 meter maximum front yard setback. Typically, the zoning in this area, we've done the car dealership across the street from this particular facility, and we're also developing the site adjacent to that. So we're very familiar with the typical auto park setbacks. But it turns out that this site had the zoning setback adjusted through an exception to accommodate the previous owner's design, I believe. And that is why they set a maximum setback dimension, whereas it's typically a 4.5 meter minimum setback dimension, which were it like that, we would have no variance in front of you today. So we are simply asking for a simple adjustment to this setback in order to develop the site in a very typical site organization for a car dealership, in this case, a Nissan car dealership. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. Committee members, if there are any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Anyone else wishes to speak on this application? Any concerned neighbor or anybody from the public? Seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0055 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number one, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown in the sketch attached to the public notice. Number two, that the owner finalize site plan approval under City File SPA 2020-0002, execute a site plan agreement and post any required financial securities and insurance to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services. Number three, that no display or storage of motor vehicles shall be permitted within the front yard. And number four, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. If no further discussion, looking for a motion to proceed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, motion to proceed with staff recommendations.
By
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My apologies for, I had my mic off. It's Elizabeth Corazola. Just a point of clarification in the proposed conditions. I think it's condition number, 3 says no display or storage of motor vehicles permitted within the front yard. I would just like to clarify that for purposes of this zone, the lot line abutting Dixie Road is actually the front yard. So I'm hoping that with your indulgence, an amendment to that condition. I assume that the intended yard is the yard abutting Dockstetter Road rather than the yard abutting Ace Drive, but perhaps Ms. Swinfield can clarify which yard she's intending to prohibit the display and storage of vehicles.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be within the area that the increased setback is being provided. We don't want the storage or display of vehicles in that increased setback area. So whichever frontage is best for zoning interpretation, I will put that to Ms. Corazola.
Thank you. Then through you, Mr. Chair, if I may make a recommendation that condition 3 be amended so that no display or storage of motor vehicles shall be permitted within the yard between the building and the lot line abutting Dockstetter Road. I assume that Ms. Swinfield doesn't object to vehicles being displayed to the rear of the building in the large parking area, which I imagine is intended for display of motor vehicles.
That is correct.
Okay, so between the building and the lot line abutting Dockstetter Road. Mr. Chair.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we do show parking for customers in that area. It's not for car display, but it is for customers who are getting their car serviced.
Correct, and that would still be permitted. It's about the display vehicles or the vehicles that would be stored on the site for the purpose of.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the parking of customer vehicles is still permitted within the area shown as vehicle parking spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carzola. And to the representative, I assume he's in agreement as he understands what exactly this wording change means. Back to Mr. Power, you put together the motion. If you can amend your motion and if no question or comment.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. Motion to proceed and support with the amended conditions set by the staff.
Okay, Mr. Power put together a motion to proceed with the amended staff recommendation, seconded by Ms. Dorfler. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, so this is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members and staff.
Calling application A 2020-0058, Lisa McConnell. The property is addressed as 14 Watson Crescent.
Mr. Chair, the agent, Hung Pham, is present in the session. And Hung, your microphone, you're in the session now. You can turn on your microphone and address the committee.
Good morning, committee staff, and Mr. Chair. My name is Hung Pham, and I am the authorized agent. Today I'll be applying for 3 minor variances. The first is to permit the interior side yard setback of 0.65 to the existing carport, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum setback of 1.2 meters. Second would be to permit the lot coverage of 38.7%, whereas the law permits a maximum coverage of 30. This is directly related to the existing carport, which caused it to exceed by 8.7%. The third would be to permit the accessory building, which is a shed, having a square footage of 18.27 square meters. So that is exceeding it by 3.27 on a singular accessory building. And that would be it.
Thank you, Mr. Pham. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Anyone in the audience or the concerned neighbor just to speak? I didn't get any correspondence, so seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0058 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown in the sketch attached to the public notice. Number 2, that the applicant obtain building permits for the accessory structure and carport within 60 days of the final date of the committee's decision or within an extended period of time to be granted at the discretion of the chief building official. Number 3, that drainage from the carport shall flow onto the applicant's property. Number 4, that drainage on adjacent property shall not be adversely affected. And number 5, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Pham. You understand and accept these recommendations?
Yes.
If no further discussion, looking for a motion to proceed by committee members. Motion put forward by Mr. Cope, seconded by Ms. Marcus. All in favor? This is carried. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. So this is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Calling application A 2020-0059, Inderjit Singh and Paramjit Kaur. The property is located at 24 Faywood Drive.
Mr. Chair, the agent, Arshad Siddiqui, is present. As well, there is a resident, Maitri Sharma, who wishes to address committee after the agent addresses the committee. So Arshad, you're in the session. You can unmute your microphone. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Member, Committee of Adjustment. My name is Arshad, architect and agent for the owner of property at 24 Faywood Drive. And today I would be requesting one minor variance on the zoning bylaw requirement to have 1.2 meters setback from side yard. We would be requesting a minor variance of 0.96 meters. There would be three risers taking to the landing level, which will be the primary entrance for second unit. So the proposed walkway will continue. There would be step up again, leading to the rear yard. So there would be no blockage of walkway, and we also commit to abide by all the requirements as per staff report.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask the neighbor, Sharma, if you can come and.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of Committee of Adjustment. My house is right behind 24 Faywood Drive. I am at 56 Brookfield Court, and I would like to oppose this variance because I don't feel it is very safe and it sets a wrong precedence in the neighborhood to dig up the side of the house to create steps to the basement, which is not deemed safe and appropriate. I would imagine city officials have taken their zoning bylaw officials have already looked at it, and there must be some kind of a bylaw prohibiting this because the narrowness of the sideway is not. It is very. If you look at the Google Maps, even if you look at it, if there, in case of any emergency, there wouldn't be any proper access for any medical personnel or fire people to get into the basement. And I find it very anxious because my property is right behind it and I don't feel very comfortable with this.
Thank you for your concerns and coming forward, Ms. Sharma. However, we have seen, thank you that you're recommending us to go through the Google map, but however, the committee members do visit time to time on the subject properties, and we are very well aware. But thank you for coming forward and taking your time. Now, if no further any concerned resident wishes to speak on this, I would like to go back to the staff to weigh in their comments.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0059 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number one, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown in the sketch attached to the public notice. Number two, that a building permit be obtained for the below-grade entrance and exterior stairway within 60 days of the final date of committee's decision, or within an extended period of time to be granted at the discretion of the chief building official. Number three, that the below-grade entrance shall not be used to access an unregistered second unit. And number four, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winfield. Just a quick question. And those three risers going down and then step up again, I believe that's what the applicant tend to mention, Mr. Siddiqui. I just want to check but there has to be a drain. I don't see any recommendation put forward for the drainage of that particular.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there would be a proper drain connected to the sump pump, so there would be no issue of water going inside the house.
Mr. Chair.
So my understanding is once they submit the sketch, I believe that's what is showing, or do we need to add any other condition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that through the building permit review, they would be required to ensure that there is proper drainage provided and that everything is constructed according to the Ontario Building Code. So typically when we include that drainage condition that they have to provide that side yard design, it's in a case where we are looking for a separate submission outside of the building permit. And in this particular case, our development engineers are satisfied that we didn't need that step for this particular case.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Sorry, may I? It's Elizabeth Corzola again. I do just have a question for clarification. I just want to ensure that I didn't mishear or misunderstand the applicant's presentation. This is, I just want to confirm that it is a below grade entrance, that these stairs actually lead down to a landing, a concrete landing, and with a drain, and then back up again. The way that the drawing is shown, it appears to be a landing with stairs leading down, which would imply that the entrance is actually above the ground, which would entail a different variance. I do want to make sure that the plans that will ultimately be submitted for minor variance are going, or sorry, for building permit will comply with this variance. So if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, just confirm with the applicant, is this door above ground or below the ground?
This door is 2 feet 0 inch below the ground, below the grade. So that is correct what Ms. Elizabeth is saying.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the motion.
Okay, so if no further discussion, and Mr. Siddiqui, are you accepting an agreement with staff recommendation? You understand?
Yes.
And accept that?
Yes, I understand and accept.
Okay, committee members, if no further discussion, looking for motion to proceed. Motion put forward by Mr. Powers, supporting staff recommendation, seconded by Mr. Cope. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing, hearing none. So this is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
So much, Chair and members.
Calling application A 2020-0060, Sunita Kapil. The property is located at 562 Conservation Drive.
Mr. Chair, the agent for this application, Jamie Mack, is present, as is an owner, Dave Kapil. And Mr. Mack, please go ahead.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee and staff. My name is Jamie Mack. I'm the authorized agent for the registered owner of this property. As a designer for this property, the client wanted to provide a secondary suite, and we did a thorough, investigation about how we could meet his sort of design requirements. And we determined that the best location for this property was in sort of the north of the property, which had a larger setback. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet the front yard setback requirements. So we're requesting a reduction in the front yard setback from the center line of road of 32 meters we're requesting a 23.8 meter setback. The second variance was regarding the building height. And since this is sort of a walkout type lot, the average grade of the building was much lower, was pushed lower, which then reduced the maximum permitted building height. But upon analysis, by measuring the building height from just the front yard, he would actually comply with the bylaw. So that's what we're requesting there. And I guess that really summarizes what we're requesting.
Okay, committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Anyone who wishes to speak, any concerned neighbor, anybody from the audience? I don't see any submission. If not, then we'd like to hear staff recommendation on this.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0060 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown in the sketch attached to the public notice. Number 2, that the applicant shall provide city standard tree protection fencing around the root zone of any trees within 5 meters of the limit of construction, including trees on neighboring lots, and shall demonstrate the installation of said protection to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services prior to construction. And number 3, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Thank you. Back to the representative. Do you understand and accept these recommendations by staff, Mr. Mack?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Committee members, if no further discussion or comment, looking for a motion to proceed. Motion put forward by Ms. Doffler, supporting staff recommendations, seconded by Ms. Marcus. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing, hearing none. So this is carried unanimously.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
Thank you. Thank you.
Calling application A 2020-0062, Sriskan Tharanja Kavragamu and Uma Sriskandaraja. The property is located at 44 Levendale Court.
Mr. Chair, the agent on behalf of this application, Mithulan, is present. Mithulan, please unmute your microphone and you can address the committee.
Good morning, committee. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mithulan Sriskandaraja. I am the authorized agent for this application. This application is asking for 3 minor variances, with minor variances 2 and 3 being related towards the driveway. Minor variance 1 is asking for a reduced setback of 4.37 meters where it's asking for a reduced setback of 4.37 meters for the construction of an open roofed porch veranda. This is basically to enhance the backyard experience of the existing 2-story dwelling. It will provide protection to the existing below grade basement entrance, which is noted within the sketches. And also it would provide protection for outdoor use of the backyard and the existing patio. Minor variances 2 and 3, as mentioned, are related to the driveway. In the provided sketches, you can see that there is the existing front entrance and landing are directly adjacent to the existing driveway. And City of Brampton bylaw currently states that walkways directly adjacent to the existing driveways would also be counted towards the total driveway width. And so the homeowners would like to build a walkway from the existing entrance adjacent to the driveway all the way to the curb. And so this would result in the existing driveway being extended by 2 meters. And in conjunction with this, they are requesting a curb cut so that the walkway comes out all the way to the right-of-way road and would look aesthetically pleasing. That's all I have to say about this application. Thank you.
Okay. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please, if no one from the neighborhood, as I don't see or hear, so staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0062 and find it to be supportable in part, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that variance 1 to permit an increased encroachment for an open roofed porch be approved. Number 2, that variances 2 and 3 to permit an increased driveway width and a reduced parking spot depth be refused. Number 3, that the extent of variance 1 be limited to the sketch that's shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. And number 4, that drainage from the roof of the veranda shall flow onto the applicant's property.
Number 5, that drainage on adjacent property shall not be adversely affected. And number 6, that failure to comply with and maintain conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winfield. Back to the representative. Do you understand and accept these recommendations by the staff?
I understand the recommendations. I just have a few more comments. Regards to the variances 2 and 3, when you look at them, it seems that the application is requesting that this be done for a parking spot. This is not the truth. The reason why we're asking for this is to build a walkway, which would strictly be used for a walkway. The curb cut, when we're asking for the reduced parking spot, is before this application was submitted, an application was submitted for a curb cut prior, and the curb cut was refused because the bylaw because the department said that it wouldn't allow for a proper parking spot, even though that wasn't the intended use. So that's why that was included with this application. And recommendations from staff seem towards going towards that. If a vehicle would be parked, there wouldn't be enough room, which there wouldn't be a vehicle parked there, which is why I believe that this should also be approved. Even during the last meeting, application A-2020-0047 was approved for an existing driveway that is of 7.74 meters. This application is also asking for a driveway width of 8 meters, which is a difference of 0.03 meters. So I feel like this should also be approved, considering that precedent was sort of set with that application, whereas it was approved for an already existing driveway, and we're asking for one before we build one. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Each and every application, when we look, I know you mentioned about another application. Each and every application has different circumstances, different area of scope to look into it. However,
no, I just finished my committee of adjustment meeting.
Well, someone finished committee of adjustment, but we have not. If you can mute the microphone.
Sorry, I didn't test my mic. But it went good. I actually just got off the phone.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're trying to determine which microphone is on.
That's okay, no problem. I guess someone took the day off early. Well, we are still here. So back to what we were, when I was commenting on it, I would love to go back to staff to have their point, if they can address this point by the representative. However, I just want to bring one more thing, like in the event if you are willing to construct a walkway, and as long as you are not parking on that vehicle and you're putting some barricades and working with the staff. So I don't think so the staff oppose the walkway. And if the staff can comment on that one, especially maybe Ms. Corzola can answer, but I would like to go back to Ms. Winfield first, and then if we could get a comment from Ms. Corzola.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as we know, the definition of driveway within the zoning bylaw includes any hard surface capable of being parked upon. So if that walkway is intended to be as just a walkway, but is installed at the same grade as the rest of the driveway, for the purposes of the zoning bylaw, it's considered to be part of the driveway. Now, as you have noted, Mr. Chair, you are completely correct. If there was some sort of permanent barrier or a significant grade change that prevented the parking of vehicles, that's where that differentiation would come into play. But to speak to how big that kind of grade difference or what those barriers would have to be, I would throw it to Ms. Corzola.
Ms. Corzola, maybe your mic is mute.
Yes, indeed. So I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shelby, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me an opportunity to address committee on this issue. I do just want to note, firstly, the difference between this application and the one dealt with at the prior committee meeting. particularly in respect to the request in this instance for a curb cut, which is a road access expansion, which therefore does in fact reinforce the fact that this is intended for parking purposes, because not only is the request to expand the driveway above the sidewalk and provide access or a walkway from the sidewalk to the front porch, it actually is proposing an expansion, and an expansion specifically of the municipal curb between the sidewalk and the roadway. Which is why the curb cut application, I suspect, was refused, because in that area you would require a minimum depth of 5.4 meters in order to accommodate a vehicle, which would now have access to that area by virtue of the expanded curb cut. And yes, I can also confirm that the driveway being approximately 6 meters at this point, an expansion by a walkway of 0.71 meters, which would allow the permitted 6.71 meters to be accommodated, would be permitted as of right. So there would not be any need to install barriers. Obviously, in front of the steps, in front of the porch, we do allow that area, and it's currently paved, I believe, with some paver stones. So a depth in that area of 1.6 meters would also be permitted. Sorry, of 1.8 meters, 6 feet in front of the steps. Can also be paved, but because that's been deemed to be an area that is intended to walk and provide access to the porch, and then is also not capable of being parked upon. So there are options for the creation of a walkway that would form part of the driveway, but still provide access to the stairs. I noticed that the walkway is not actually intending to go on the other side or reduce the required permeable surface or lead to the backyard. But that is how the bylaw applies to these hardened level surfaces that are capable of being parked upon. And the fact that this one is actually compounded with a request to cut the municipal curb, which implies that the access is actually being requested to the street and not just to the sidewalk, would reinforce staff's recommendation, I believe, from a planning perspective, that this is intended to be a parking space. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carzola. Back to the representative. Sir, I do hear you as a committee that what your intent to do, and it's good that you're coming forward, in fact, like not coming after when it's done. However, if you work with the staff and you can get whatever the maximum allowable width, they will give it to you for the sidewalk purpose. You can, as staff indicated, both the zoning and planning, that you can have maybe different level of surface, or even if the same surface, as long as you put together some barricades. Those things can be implemented. However, I do not tend to agree with your proposal to cut the curb. But we fully noted that, in the neighborhood, some like this procedure did not get followed. However, when anything comes in front of us, we deal with things accordingly. So anything you wish to add at the last, please do quickly as we'll proceed with the regular course of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the concerns of both yourself and the staff, and the curb cut was purely aesthetic. As mentioned, it's supposed to be used for a walkway, so there wouldn't be need for an access to a vehicle. So I understand your decision that your intention is to deny that. However, I wasn't so clear when you were just speaking whether you intend to approve the driveway width of 8 meters. And so if not, just also to clarify from what the staff was just saying, if the area just in front of the stairs where the sort of landing is, my understanding was that could be up to 1.8 meters. And I was wondering if that length could travel all the way from the existing stairs to the sidewalk, so that walkway on sort of our part of the property, because forest land past the sidewalk towards the right of way of the road is property of the city. I just want clarification if the walkway from the stairs to the sidewalk on our side could be up to 1.8 meters, if that's what I was understanding. Thank you.
Sure, I'll request Ms. Corzola to come back, but before I just quickly want to make the comment. My understanding is, and I don't know if the same thing applied from the porch, but I know from the brick wall at the garage up to 6 feet, it can be extended. So Ms. Corzola, if you can please address both the concerns, like my question and the question put forward by the representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly. So yes, you are correct, Mr. Chair, that generally the allowance for extending a driveway down in front of, like you said, the garage is 6 feet, which is the exact same allowance that we would provide in front of the porch. So yes, to the applicant's point, you would be permitted to create a walkway that leads from your driveway that has a width of 6 feet, 1.8 meters, that goes in front of the porch. And that being, you have a setback right now from that porch of, it looks like 3.01 meters, meaning you would have I think it's a 1.2 or 4 feet remaining that could not be paved between that walkway and the sidewalk. I think though, through you, Mr. Chair, and not to speak on behalf of the applicant, but I think that the request from the applicant is to allow for that expansion of what we would normally permit as 1.8 meters, that it be allowed to extend all the way to the sidewalk, which would result in an increase in driveway width, because now that would be seen to be driveway. Anything that's more than 1.8 meters wide is capable of being parked upon. Certainly a car could now pull into that area, recognizing that it's the intent of this applicant to not pull a car into that area. If the committee sees fit to approve the increased driveway width above the sidewalk only, that's a decision that I will leave in your hands. And if you are agreeable to that, I do have some recommended conditions.
So thank you, Ms. Corzola. It really helps. You know what? I would certainly like to go into that side, given the fact that they came before the construction, not once they have done the construction without any permits, and then they are coming for, and then we are stuck that it looks good, and whether we want to cut it or we just want to, leave it as is. Oftentimes, as a committee, we always put into that spot that, where we may need to make the decision. So I personally, I'm okay with that proposed, as suggested by this applicant, as long as it stays between the porch and the sidewalk only, and they are not continuing between the boulevard portion and the sidewalk. So I'm personally okay as long as the rest of the committee member feels the same. But for that, Ms. Corzola, we do need. I'm in the opinion that we do need to add some sort of recommendations, as you suggested, that would like to impose some conditions extra on this. Mr. Power, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I tend to agree that the driveway width that is being asked by the agent above the sidewalk would be allowed. I think that's only fair given the nature and the environment or the surrounding properties as well. The curb cut not be allowed, and anything below the sidewalk, the boulevard, not be allowed. So similar to what you were saying, I would be all in favor of that.
Thank you. So, Ms. Corzola, if you can suggest some of those recommendations or the conditions you would like to add or modify, and then so we can proceed.
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you, assuming that I'm correct, and I do, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm hoping that that I haven't misstated what the applicant was requesting. But understanding what the committee is willing to support, I would recommend, sorry.
Just quickly, Ms. Corzola, just so that we are not beating around the bush, back to the representative. Sir, do you understand that what we are suggesting, and we are basically granting your request?
Yes, I understand.
Thank you. Ms. Carzola, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I would simply recommend, based on the conditions before you, that, sorry, let me just see which variance is the parking space depth. So the conditions would be changed to say that number 2 would be altered to say that variance 3 to permit a reduced parking spot depth be refused. That variance 2 be approved to a maximum width of 8 meters above the sidewalk, and then in brackets or parentheses, I would say between the sidewalk and the front porch.
Yeah.
And that the driveway width below the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the curb, shall not exceed the maximum permitted width of 6.71 meters. I would also add for your consideration that the expanded driveway between the porch and the sidewalk shall not be parked upon and shall be used solely for the purpose of a walkway.
Mhm. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree with that.
Yeah, same here. And I guess rest of the committee as well, based on the discussion so far. Would like to, I just want to check with Ms. Myers if she's all good and with all these proposed recommendations.
Through the chair, I'm fine with the recommendations.
Thank you. Back to one more time to the representative. Sir, do you understand and accept these amended changes?
Yes, I understand and accept these changes.
Thank you. If no further discussion, looking for a motion to proceed. With the staff's supporting, we have a mover and seconded for staff's amended recommendations by Mr. Cope, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? Anyone opposing? Seeing, hearing none. So this is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
Calling application A 2020-0063, John Anderson and Clova Anderson. The property is located at 10315 Winston Churchill Boulevard.
Mr. Chair, John Anderson was on the call and he's lost internet connection, so we're trying to reestablish a connection. So there is nobody else on that particular item. We did manage to make contact with the item raised earlier, item 8, A 2020-0053. The owner, Ray Gurinder, is present. If the committee wishes to go back to that item, or that can be held down till the end of the meeting.
So, sure, maybe meantime you can establish the connection with this application on Winston Churchill. Ms. Myers, if that's appropriate, we can hear that application, the one left behind, quickly, and then hopefully meantime there will be connection will be established between this one, and then we can proceed from there on. But remember, if that's something okay with all of you? Okay, that's good. So, Mr. Clerk, if you can get ready, Mr. Grinderai, and if Ms. Myers, you can pull that application out.
So we're recalling application A 2020-0053, Ray Gurinder, and the property is located at 14 Everglade Drive.
So Gurinder, you're now called into the session. You can unmute your microphone on your phone and address the committee, please.
Mr. Rai, you there?
This person is in the session. I will unmute your microphone. There you go. Please go ahead.
Hello, committee members and chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I apologize for not being present earlier, but I was called away on an emergency. I apologize. So my application today is requesting the structure of an accessory gazebo in the backyard of my property. I live on a 2-acre property. The gazebo would encompass 2 sides of a existing pool. It is going to be 87.13 square meters in size, whereas the city only permits the 23 square meter accessory structure. In addition to that, in terms of the height of the structure, I'm requesting for the structure height to be at 4.62 meters, where the bylaw permits a 3-meter structure. And it will have a combined gross floor area of 131.44 square meters for 2 accessory structures, whereas the bylaw only permits 40 square meters. The accessory structure is, like I said, in the back of the property on a 2-acre estate lot. And behind my property is a ravine lot with no visual obstruction to any neighbors. Also, my property is set back on the street from the other properties, and they would also be unable to be affected visually by the structure that would be erected.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. If I don't see if there's anyone available from the neighborhood or any concerned residents of the neighborhood. If not, staff, could you please weigh in your comments on this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, staff have reviewed application A 2020-0053 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Number 2, that the proposed gazebo be of an open style construction and not be enclosed. Number 3, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the existing accessory structures within 60 days of the decision of approval, or within an extended period of time to be granted at the discretion of the chief building official. And number 4, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roy, you understand and accept these conditions?
Yes, sir, I understand and accept them.
Thank you. Committee members, if no further discussion, looking for a motion to proceed. Motion put forward by Mr. Powers, supporting staff recommendation, seconded by Mr. Cope. All in favor? Anyone opposing? Seeing, hearing none. So this is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recalling application A 2020-0063, John Anderson and Clova Anderson, and the property is located at 10315 Winston Churchill Boulevard.
Mr. Anderson, you're now into the WebEx session, so please unmute your microphone to address the committee on your application.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Anderson, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry we had lost our connection for a few minutes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is a very small open porch on the side of our house. It will, in size, it is 6 by 7 feet to give us some protection from snow and rain at the back door. We would like to proceed with this project. It's currently, the area is under an interim control order that doesn't allow any construction, and therefore we've had to apply for a minor variance.
Okay, sure, no problem, Mr. Anderson. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. Do we have anyone from the neighborhood who wants to speak on this application? I don't see any submission, so seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please read your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0063 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed.
Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. And number 2, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do you understand and accept these 2 recommendations?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, I do. That's fine.
Okay, that's good. You made our life easy, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. If no further question, comment, concern, looking for a motion to proceed. Motion put forward by Mr. Powers, seconded by Ms. Duffler. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Saying none. So this is carried unanimously. So this is approved. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Calling application A 2020-0064, Safdar Hussain. The property is located at 80 Abel Drive.
So, Mr. Chair, the agent Alankar Lavater is present for this application as well. We do have a resident, Wade and Krista Trenholm. We also have another resident, Gloria and Gaston Molina, who were on the call earlier but are not present at the moment. So we'll start with the agent. Alankar, please proceed. You can unmute your microphone to address committee.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry, Alankar, it looks like you're connected by both a computer and a phone. So which are you preferring to communicate with?
Can I communicate with the phone?
Okay, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, member of committee and staff. My name is Alankar Lavater. I am the agent to the registered owner, authorized owner of 80 Abel Drive. We have a very simple minor variance request to permit for a interior side setback of 0.68 meter in lieu of 1.2 meter. And the reason for that is due to an existing as-built below grade staircase that leads to the the basement floor.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing, hearing none. If there are anyone from the public, concerned neighbor, is there?
Mr. Chair, there is. Wade and Krista Trenholm. I've brought you both into the meeting, so one of you can please proceed.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee staff. This is Wade from 39 Abel Drive. I'm 4 doors down on the south of 80 Abel Drive. The side enclosure is pre-existing. It's fine by me, but the roof structure appears to extend to the fence line, which makes it appear very large and very obtrusive between the 2 homes. And so in that respect, I oppose the variance.
Okay, maybe we can get your concern can addressed by the staff, Mr. Trenholm. So let me just go to the staff, what's their take on this, and if they can talk about this application and what's their position. As I see, they are supporting this, but if that is something has been extended by this current owner or the previous, but this is now with the property. If that is not meeting the bylaws, what are our staff's position?
Mr. Chair, so staff have reviewed the application, A 2020-0064, and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Number 2, that a building permit be obtained for the building addition within 60 days of the final date of committee's decision. Number 3, that the entrance not be used to access an unregistered second unit. Number 4, that the applicant provides a side yard drainage design that ensures the drainage is contained within the subject property and does not impact adjacent lands, and that the design be implemented within 180 days of the final date of the committee's decision and demonstrated to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Public Works and Engineering.
Number 5, that drainage from the existing covered below-grade entrance roof must flow onto the applicant's property. And number 6, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Speaking through you, Mr. Chair, in regard to the concern from the resident on the street, I believe we could include a condition relating to the permitted encroachment of that roof structure. But for some assistance with wording, I would look to Ms. Corazzola for what we are able to put in that condition.
Thank you, Ms. Winfield. Certainly Ms. Corazzola can put together, but just to the concerned neighbor, I do recall this one, and I have the picture in front of me. It doesn't seem to me that there was some sort of encroachment, even though I know the side yard is not that big. However, the next door neighbor maybe have more space than this family. But I think this is, it's not that they have done something after, maybe this is how it got constructed. But certainly Ms. Corazzola can put some general wording. So in the event if something has been done without the approval, so maybe we can bring that into the order.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts. I understand that this is an existing situation inherited from the previous owner. I do believe that, as suggested by Ms. Winfield, I don't think it goes right to the property line. The requested variance is for a setback of 0.68 meters, which is just a little over 2 feet. The zoning bylaw would permit the roof of that structure to extend up to 0.5 meters beyond the building setback. So that would still leave a setback of 0.18 meters between the lot line and the roof structure. So I don't know necessarily that you need a condition, but if you would like to impose one, then I would suggest that you state something like the roof projection above the below grade entrance enclosure shall not exceed the maximum permitted 0.5 meters.
Okay.
And Ms. Winfield already has the conditions that all of the drainage from that roof has to be directed onto the subject property and cannot be let to drain onto the neighbors. So that would be covered and required by the building permit.
Yes, that's good enough, I guess, and that should address the concerned neighbor's concern as well, even though it seems fine to me, and I believe the rest of the committee members tend to agree with me as well. So if no further discussion, I just want to go back one time to the representative. You understand and accept these amended recommendations by the staff? Maybe your microphone is mute. If you can unmute your microphone, we can't hear you. One more time, you understand and accept these recommendations by the staff?
Yes, we understand and we accept the conditions and will abide by the conditions to fulfill this variance request.
Thank you. If no further discussion for this application by anyone, looking for a motion to proceed with the amended staff recommendations, committee member. Motion put forward by Ms. Doffler, seconded by Ms. Marcus. All in favor? This is carried unanimously as no one is opposing. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling application A19-200.
So, Mr. Chair, there is the agent, Jim Levac, is present, as well as legal counsel for the applicant, Patricia Foran, to address the committee. Also present is Francesco Policaro on behalf of the applicant. The ownership group is present in case there are any questions, and Jay Lim and Joe Martino in the event there are any questions of the committee. So, Mr. Levac, please proceed.
Before I call Mr. Levesque, I just want to note that the 4 committee members will be present on this application except Mr. Cope. Mr. Levesque, please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm not gonna repeat the presentation, as I basically gave the same presentation back in July. I believe the issues that were raised back at that hearing, and Patricia Foran can speak in more detail to those following my comments, were there was a couple of things for the regard requesting the deferral. I understand the committee wanted more input from the Economic Development Department, and as well as additional input on the Conservation Authority condition, which is now it's actually been made a condition in the revised conditions. So I'll turn it over to Patricia just to go through the test issues that she wanted to speak to.
Sure.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's still morning, and members of the committee. My name is Patricia Foran. I'm a partner with the law firm Aird & Burles LLP, and obviously I represent the applicant along with Mr. Levesque. I think I am the only person who followed Mr. Fay's instructions yesterday, and I provided you with a written summary of my oral presentation. There's no need to put it up on the screen. It's there for you as a takeaway. And I guess I get another gold star from Mr. Fay, and he'll understand what I mean when I say that. The numbered company that I represent for the committee's benefit requests that the committee approve the minor variance application subject to the conditions identified in the September 8th planning staff report that's in front of you. In my respectful submission, the committee not only has the jurisdiction to grant the minor variances requested, but it must now move to make a decision. There is overwhelming factual and opinion evidence before you that confirms that the 4 tests for approving minor variances are met. And before I turn to those, just by way of brief background, the committee may recall that when this application first came before you last December, I was there along with Mr. Levesque. And at that time, staff from the city did not express support for its approval. The committee adjourned the application to allow the applicant and municipal representatives to meet and to discuss the application. And that has happened. The committee should be pleased that, in fact, as a result of that deferral and the meeting that took place between staff and the applicant, all of the outstanding issues identified by Brampton staff and the committee have been fully addressed. And that's confirmed in the updated staff report that's before you, dated September 8th. In addition to city staff support now for approval, you also have a clear expression of support for the approval of the minor variances expressed by the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. They've got a letter filed with you, found in Appendix 6 of the package in front of you. I understand that when this matter came before you 2 months ago in early July, the committee had some additional questions regarding the position of economic development staff. Their written support for the approval of the application is found again in Appendix 1, which is the July staff report. And I understand that a representative from that department is available today to answer any questions that you may have. If I may then just turn back, and I know it may seem a little trite, but I think it is important for the committee to go back and formulate your decision based upon the 4 tests. So I've outlined those in my written submission, and I won't take you through it in any great detail, but I want to highlight some points for the committee's consideration. The first test is whether the approval of the variances conforms to the general intent and purpose of the city's official plans. You are in a position, and you must make a decision with respect to what the official plan provides for and what its general intent and purpose is. And you have that opinion evidence upon which you can make that decision because it's set out in the staff report by City of Brampton planning staff. The lands are designated prestige industrial. They discuss the general intent and purpose of the official plan, and certain of their conclusions are notable for the committee. And they note, for example, that the secondary plan through special policies provides for motor vehicle dealerships within this prestige industrial designation. It is staff's opinion that the proposal is a logical extension of the established auto mall, which, as the committee knows, is established to the north. Furthermore, the applicant is proposing to include office uses, including corporate office uses in the development proposal. The inclusion of office uses is important in helping to achieve the intent of the prestige industrial designation. So not only does the application conform with the official plan, it actually helps to achieve some of the objectives of the official plan designation. And then finally, staff also conclude that the proposal has demonstrated that the employment objectives of the secondary plan have been met. That is also supported by the employment report that you will find in Appendix 2 that demonstrates that the proposal, the approval of the proposal will provide for 379 new high-paying and varied employment opportunities, including corporate head office jobs. The employment density of the proposal exceeds the objectives within the secondary plan area and consequently has received support from your staff. I don't intend to spend a lot of time on the regional appeal official plan because it in fact defers to the City of Brampton official plan when it comes to identifying and defining employment uses and defining the issue of employment conversion. And it should be satisfactory to the committee that in fact staff have considered their own policies and have concluded that the application is supportable. With respect to the second test and whether the variances address the general intent purposes of the city's zoning bylaw, again, you have staff's opinion in their staff report at Appendix 1 that in fact this test has been more than met with the approval of the variances as requested. They've concluded that this is a logical extension of the existing uses in the area, which is the Auto Mall to the north, and furthermore that the office component also adds to and reinforces the support for the existing zoning in this area. Test 3, which is the test of desirability, I want to just note for the committee that in fact, as I noted earlier, there's the creation of 379 high quality jobs. There is no negative impact on the viability of surrounding employment lands. The site is physically suitable for the proposed use. The Conservation Authority in their correspondence to you, in fact, not only expressed support, but also confirmed that in fact the works that are proposed are located outside of and are sufficiently set back from all features. So they are more than satisfied with the development application. The one final thing that the committee on this test may wish to also consider is that the ability to accommodate electric vehicles in the proposed collision center, which forms part of the application, that's in the southwest quadrant of the lands, will actually set the City of Brampton apart as one of the few locations in the broader region for this innovative technology. So here's an opportunity through this application to advance the city's role in the greater region in terms of providing for a variety of opportunities, both employment and technical. Finally, with respect to whether the variances are minor, that's the fourth prong of the test. This committee has approved several applications through minor variance approvals for motor vehicle sales and repair uses in the secondary plan area. And those are all set out in Appendix 5 of the city staff report. It may be of interest to the committee that earlier today, agenda item 10, which you approved, which is the property at 7585 Ace Drive, is in fact an application that actually was in front of the committee, I think about 2 years ago, again, approved through minor variance to allow for the motor vehicle uses that are now being implemented on that site, the Kia and other dealership that are proposed there. So it is completely consistent with this committee's practice to approve this through minor variances. By way of just brief conclusion, and I appreciate the committee's attention to my submissions and Mr. Levac's, but the approval of the requested minor variances is uniformly supported by city staff. It will foster high quality employment opportunities for Brampton residents in a prestige development that will help attract and retain talent in the city. And you have that information that's provided in the package in front of you. This is a wonderful opportunity for the city of Brampton. And on behalf of my client, we look forward to the committee's approval of the two variances today, and we accept the conditions as outlined in the September 8th staff report. Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions of me or Mr. Levac, I think we would propose to turn it over to staff at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Corwin and Mr. Levac for your submissions. Committee members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Hearing none. Anyone here wishes to speak, any concerned neighbor or anybody from the community wishes to speak on this application? Hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments? Mr. Mr. Vanderberg, are you there? Maybe your microphone is mute.
David Vanderberg, your microphone's unmuted now. Please proceed.
Vanderberg, are you there?
Mr. Chair, his microphone's unmuted, but we can't seem to hear him at this time. I don't know if there's somebody else in the planning department that would wish to address this item. So, Mr. Chair, I just saw a note from Mr. Vanderberg that he's having some technical issues. So I don't know if there's, he is listening, but I don't know if there's somebody else from planning who could start the conversation in terms of staff comments so we can resolve his issues.
Not, maybe we can just, I'm going to try a few more seconds. Otherwise, we'll just put the item at the end of the agenda and maybe meantime the microphone get fixed.
Staff from Economic Development are on this call, Mr. Aldonate, and are prepared to provide some comment to the committee.
Sure. Mr. Aldonate, you're more than welcome to present the scenario on the behalf of ACDEV.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So thank you for having me this morning. I'm not going to go into the planning details. I'll leave that for Dave and his team to convey those comments. But I just wanted to give you a perspective on economic development.
Can you please speak a little bit loud, Mr. Aldonate? Your volume is a bit low.
Sure. I'll try and speak up a little bit louder.
Yes.
So on behalf of economic development, we've had the chance to review the revised submission that has been provided by the Paulo Caro Group. And we're happy to say that since the deferral was made, since the last time I was present in front of committee, their package is much more robust. We have a better understanding of how much more employment they're going to be provided. We understand they're going to bring their head office here. We understand that there's more head office jobs here. We understand that the amount of retail is limited, so that will not be the major part of this development, which I think really adds to this development. And I also understand that they're actually going to build sooner rather than later, so it's not going to be a parking lot for a great amount of time, if any. And I believe that's one of the conditions that Dave and his team have put into the report, so we'll see some construction happening here in the near future. So from an EDO perspective, yes, we're okay with this. We support it, and we're looking forward to these new jobs coming to Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aldonate, and I tend to agree with you on that note that, over the time, even though this application was deferred a couple of times, but on the jobs perspective, both Paulo Caro Group and the Mercedes in Brampton, this is their genuine demand, and they're relocating their head office and at one place, and obviously from Queen Street to here and some other parts. So definitely they'll help the plan and the vision ACDEV is coming with. Mr. Clark, if you can check if Mr. Vanderberg is available and he can present and read the city's opinion and the recommendations.
So, Mr. Chair,
if I may, Kelly Henderson is here from Development Services.
Sorry, this is David Vanderberg. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Vanderberg.
Okay, sorry, I apologize for those technical issues. I called in, that seems to have resolved them. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, I apologize. So for the staff report, our position remains the same as it was as presented in the earlier Committee of Adjustment meeting, and as summarized earlier today by the applicant. We are in support of the application, believe it meets the 4 tests, and we have a number of conditions. Notable among those are ones related to minimum requirements for office space, and then maximum requirements for retail space to ensure that the employment objectives of the secondary plan are met. Also, there's one change to the conditions from what was presented at the previous meeting, which is to put into them the condition that was recommended by the TRCA, essentially that the applicant obtain a permit from the Conservation Authority for the works. And for the benefit of the committee and the latest staff report, staff has provided some additional information. I'll just briefly go through that information that we presented. First was information that was provided by the applicant, including an employment report, and then that was dated March 3, and then also a letter from the applicant's legal counsel regarding issues related to the definition of employment uses, where the proposal represents employment commercials, and other matters related to the application. Staff has also provided the following information in the report. The first one is in Appendix 4, which is an excerpt from the Countryside Villages Secondary Plan, showing Schedule C and the land use designation, and especially the special policy areas where much of the policies related to motor vehicle commercial uses are provided in the secondary plan, and those are summarized in the report. The next item is in Appendix 5. It's a map of the various applications that have been made in the area. So these are overlaid on an air photo, includes Committee of Adjustment, minor variance applications, as well as site plan applications. There's a table summarizing each of those applications as well. Appendix 6 is comments from the TRCA, which confirms that they have no concerns with the application. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Vandenberg. No, that's all good. I know the conditions are lengthy and well, if the committee member, unless committee member feels that someone need to read out, but this is all displayed and it's included in the package. So even for the public, I believe this is for everyone who has access. So instead of going through and reading all those conditions one by one, as long as I'm okay with it, unless the committee member thinks differently. Members, any question, comment, concern at this point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that they've exhausted all of our concerns up to this point, so I move to motion to approve with staff recommendations.
So before I call the vote on it, I guess Ms. Duffler wishes to add something.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I wanted to commend everybody on this file, from staff through the applicant. They've given us lots of information. The jobs figures and reports are very much appreciated. I have always been in support of extending the auto mall, but this property was slightly below where we thought it was going to end. So I'm happy that the economic development is in support of this as well. That was a primary concern. So I think from my standpoint, we do have all the information in order to vote on this. So I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, just quickly, I want to make the comment before I call the vote on. The COVID has changed everything, and mainly the auto sector also got impacted big time. I want to thank both the Polycare Group and the Mercedes-Benz Group to still coming forward and bring in all these much needed jobs to Brampton. And I see that this is the time where we need to move ahead than anywhere else or any other time. Like, this is the right time and this is the right location for that. So I tend to agree with my colleague Stoffler on that note. I want to thank each and everyone involved in this application. This is the third time we are hearing to addressing all the concerns we had. Although we felt that this maybe it would be better if it goes to the council, but however, Everyone has worked so hard on this, and I also agree with both of my board members. So we have this recommendations put forward by staff, and I do have a motion put forward by Mr. Power and seconded by Ms. Stoffler to approve staff's recommendation. Just in the final note, I realized earlier when Mr. Vanderberg were having issues, Ms. Winfield or somebody else was trying to say something. That was just to fill in the spot for Mr. Vanderberg, or somebody from the staff wishes to add any other new point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just trying to fill the spot while we waited for David.
We got it, no problem. Just on the record, we have TRCA's correspondence as well stating conditional approval, and so as that addressed by Mr. Vanderberg as well. So if no further discussion, we already have the motion on the floor. So motion put forward by Mr. Power to support staff recommendation, seconded by Ms. Stoffler. All in favor? This is carried unanimously, 4-0. Anyone opposed? Opposed by none. So thank you very much, everyone, and our best wishes from this committee to the Polycarry Group. And I don't see them on the screen, but I hope they are seeing me. So wish you all the very best on behalf of this committee, and looking forward to see these facilities and extended facilities in Brampton and at the prime location of 410 and Mayfield. Thank you very much, everyone.
Calling application A 2020-0012, Bramalea Road, Phase 2 Holdings Limited. The property is located at 68 Bramalea Road.
Mr. Chair, the agent, Mark Denardis, is present for this item. Mark, you can unmute your microphone to address the committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, city staff, members of the public. My name is Mark Denardis. I'm a planning associate from Gagnon Walker Domes Urban Planner. We are the authorized agent of the registered owner for 68 Bramalea Road. You may recall that this application was last deferred at the July 7th Committee of Adjustment hearing. And since then, we've worked closely with city staff to resolve their concerns. We've had an opportunity to review the staff recommendation report and the recommended conditions of approval. We find them acceptable, and I'm happy to answer any questions that committee members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Denardis. Committee members, any question, comment, concern? Seeing none, hearing none. Anyone else wishes to speak? Anyone from the neighborhood or any concerned member? Seeing, hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, staff have reviewed application A 2020-0012 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number one, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Number two, that the unit entrance facing Bramalea Road not be used as the main entrance for clients dropping off children to the daycare and be limited to a staff or maintenance entrance. Number three, that a limited site plan application for the proposed outdoor play area and the signage details for the dedicated daycare spaces shall be approved, and the site changes depicted on the approved plan be implemented prior to establishment of the use. Number four, that the tenant within the daycare use distribute a notice to customers, parents, or guardians advising them of the drop-off plan, including a copy of the parking modification plan that's attached as Appendix 1 to this report, that shows the drop-off area, spaces, and pedestrian routes and indicates that the main unit entrance shall not be used for drop-off. And number five, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. So, committee member, if no further discussion, I would like to ask Mr. Denardis, sir, do you understand and accept these recommendations by staff?
Through the chair, yes, we do.
Thank you. Committee members, no further discussion. Looking for a motion to proceed. Motion to proceed supporting staff recommendation by Ms. Marcus, seconded by Ms. Stoffler. All in favor? Everyone? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, this is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Calling application A 2020-0028, Ali Zaid, The property is located at 9362 Heritage Road.
Mr. Chair, Ali Zaid is in today's session, and Ali, you're in there twice, so I've brought you in with your computer, so can you please unmute your microphone and just make sure that we can hear you, and then you can proceed to address the committee.
Hello, Mr. Zaid.
Ali, I'm just going to unmute one of your microphones.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I can.
Okay. We're coming back for the defer from the last meeting, and I think everything been submitted from the CVC and Ministry of Transportation, and I hope everything is clear now.
Yes, Mr. Zaid, I recall the last time we had the discussion. I know you wanted to go ahead within the summertime for the construction of your premises, unfortunately, which got caught fire. Just for the record, I would like to include the comments from CVC stating no objection, and at the same time from MTO stating no objection, but the site is still in trust area to MTO. Committee members, if any question, comment, concern, at this point, hearing none. Anyone from the neighborhood or any concerned residents has anything to say? Hearing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Staff have reviewed application A 2020-0028 and find it to be supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number one, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Number two, that the applicant provide tree protection fencing according to City of Brampton standards for the municipally owned trees along Heritage Road prior to any demolition or construction on the site, and demonstrate the installation to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services. Number three, that the residential dwelling shall not be used for the purposes of a 2-unit dwelling. Number four, that the applicant obtain any required permits from the Credit Valley Conservation Authority prior to commencing construction. And number five, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zaid, do you understand and accept these recommendations by the staff?
I do understand and accept.
Thank you. Committee members, if no further discussion on this item, looking for a motion to proceed. Motion put forward by Ms. Toffler, supporting staff recommendation, seconded by Ms. Marcus. All in favor? This is approved unanimously, seeing no opposition. So this is approved. Thank you, everyone, for this application.
Thank you.
So I believe this was the last application, Ms. Myers, if I'm correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. There is no other business.
Well, today we completed in record time, I believe, the number of applications. So thanks to the committee and everyone. Looking for a motion for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Cope, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? Yes. Seeing no opposition, again, at the end, I would like to thank each and everyone, the clerk's office, staff, planning, zoning, and obviously the committee members and the tech team for putting this meeting together. This was the first meeting of September, and we will be having another one at the end of this month. Till then, thank you, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you to all involved.
Thank you, members of committee, members of staff, and the public attending. We are just waiting for the live stream to end.